What do you get when you cross a know-it-all newspaper columnist with an awkward, unsophisticated everyman?
Yeah. Well, I'm just not sure about that right now.
Welcome to Couch and the Rube.
Welcome to Couch and the Rube, presented by Skyman Premium Cannabis, inspiring everyone to feel better, look better, sound better, play better football, maybe cover in the defensive secondary better, sack better, feel like PJ Fleck instead of Mel Tucker today. Whatever it is, Skyman is here to help you get there. Jason, how you doing, man?
I am never going to financially recover from this.
I'm great, I guess. We're here. We're doing the show. Football is ass.
It's been a tough weekend for a lot of people on a lot of fronts.
Today was great, though.
For a while.
Yeah, grit. Hashtag grit.
Hey.
Yeah. Should we just not do the show? I mean, we have a lot of good, hot takes. But
we do.
I think that we tried last week to say that we were going to just take one, and then I open up Graham's email here, and there's 95,000 of them.
So let me get into this real quick. So that was the plan, and it's hard to do that, though. And some people, like for today, we're way better. Like I think our listeners' hot takes today way better than last week because there wasn't one central theme constantly. Like we got away from that, which was the last week. It was like fire Scotty Hazelton, fire Scotty
Jay Johnson is ass.
This is that, and so and we're looking for a little more. And so here's what I would say: I don't think we're going to go away from three. Now sometimes I'll just eliminate. If it gets to be too much, I'll just eliminate some of them. But if you have three that you think are really good, especially if they're truly quick and to the point, do them. If you got one great hot take, just give us that too. So whatever you think is truly worth it. You don't have to do three. And obviously, if you just do one, the other thing is we're going to put it higher in the show. We'll definitely get into it. So,
and the more wordy, the better. Graham will put those right at the end for when we're in hour 2 and
and it gets hot in here, so to speak. Yeah,
debating on why I'm doing the show anymore. So yeah.
So we're gonna a little bit of look. I looked at them today and I thought these are really good, and I love the cadence of three. Sometimes sometimes they're really good. You got an MSU take, you got something else, you got a pet peeve, and it's fun to get into them. So I don't want to eliminate that from the show because I think it's part of the fabric. Yeah. But if you just got one, we'll do that, and we'll see where this goes after this week as well. Because if you got one good one, that's the one we want to get into. We'll see how this goes. We are also now on Patreon. In case you're unable to support any of our sponsors and want to support the show, show's going to remain free. That's never going to change. But if you go to patreon.com/couchandtherube and you want to contribute, we'll gladly take your contribution. So let's dig into these to our hot takes before we get into yours. Jason, you want to go first?
Yeah. Should I play this?
Caution. You are about to enter the spin zone.
I was told to play this whenever you were trying to spin something today, so I don't know. We have obviously we don't get together and talk about this stuff before the show. So am I gonna have to play this a lot today, Graham? Are you gonna spin?
No, I don't think I'm gonna spin much. So am I going first or you? Am I going first?
Listen, I don't know if Michigan State wins the game.
Okay.
Until November. And it wasn't just the defense. I gotta say, I was more depressed by watching that offense. And I know they scored a late touchdown, whatever, but that team had 0 on the board for most of the game. And there was another 500 yards given up on defense. Okay, so after this week they play Maryland. Let's say they give up another 500 yards, Then what? It's Scotty Hazelton's fault? I mean, are these guys, what are they watching in practice? What are they seeing in practice from these guys? If you're seeing that, if Scotty Hazelton is seeing guys in practice that look like they don't know where they're going to be in a certain game or in your scheme, then you have to adapt and try something new, right? Listen, I guess, if we're not going to fire people, then what do? Do we wait around to see if it gets better? It's not getting better. So I don't think Michigan State wins a game till November, and it's scary.
The only way they win a game, and this is sort of one of my hot takes. I think our hot takes are going to kind of mesh together here a little bit as we go, but that's fine. Yeah. The only way they win a game as they are constructed and playing right now is if they run into one or two of two dynamics. And that is either a defense that is soft enough that they can run the football and operate against, or an offense with a quarterback that's inept enough that their secondary can't be exposed. Without those two things, or at least one of them fairly severely, they're not going to win a game. So you start to look ahead, and I don't really, based on what we saw from Maryland Saturday, I don't really see it this week at Maryland. Now, we'll see if, Tagovailoa is healthy, and, we'll get a sense of that. But and so maybe that makes a difference. Wisconsin seems like a game where maybe because Wisconsin's passing game is not the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Over Ohio State.
Well, that's going to go horribly. But you're right. The Michigan game is going to go horribly. So
I don't see. That's one I don't know about because of, like we always say, the two teams, no matter how bad one of the teams is, it gets close and it competes sometimes.
And
I don't know.
That's why you have to change something. That's why you have to figure out how to be a little bit different than you are now, because otherwise you are going to lose so much confidence and be in such a rut by the time you get to that game.
You have to change something. Again, I've talked about it before. You're going to play big boy football. You want to be big boy programs, and you're going to pay your coach $900,000 a game. You have to adapt and make changes. You have to break friendships. Maybe someone will never talk to you again, but that's what you sign up for when you take that kind of money to be a head coach of a program. Well, it's not working.
And I don't, the fire somebody thing is whatever. I get that's part of the
parted
gig.
ways. I mean, what makes it okay?
But ultimately, you got to get before that. I mean, it's not like Scotty Hazelton's a defensive moron. But what you have to be willing to do is adapt what you're doing to help the people, the people you have that you're able, your defensive players.
But is he motivating players then? Okay, maybe his scheme's fine, but if he's not a motivator for his players, are you not doing your job then as well?
Well, I'm not saying his scheme right now is working. Whatever they're doing is not working for the players they have. And Mel Tucker alluded to this. Monday's press conference will be interesting. He alluded to meeting with his staff. He didn't want to get into too much in the moment until he watched the film. That's fine. I don't think coaches should overreact.
If he was a shithead coach against Washington, what was he against Minnesota then?
Yeah, and I look, I don't think people should. Those are all fair things, and I think people should support their coaches and back up their coaches until the second they don't. It does. If you're going to come out, like, I hate when athletic directors are like, we're not. None of us are happy about this. Well, that just shows the coach is about to be fired. Like, if you're a good AD, so if I'm a school president and I hear my AD say about a coach, we're not happy, we need to get better results, I'm firing that AD tomorrow, because it doesn't really matter about that coach. That AD is a shit leader. You support the coach until the second you don't publicly. That's the only way it works. And the same thing as a head coach with assistants. You can be blunt and honest, like, hey, what we're doing is not working. As a collective, we need to look at stuff. But you support your staff. So what he said there, I think, was fine and important. But I do think they need to, as a collective, I'm not saying you have to fire somebody midseason, but you got to put your heads together and figure it out. And figure out how to get the most out of these guys. Who on your roster, what young player needs an opportunity? It might be ready. And if what you have is what you have, and that's all it is, and the reason you're not making many personnel changes, and you do have some bad injuries, and you are.
No one wants to hear about the injuries, though.
Right? But then you need to change your approach. You need to get more aggressive, or you need to do something that gives them a chance to have swagger. I covered back when I lived in Kalamazoo and covered Western Michigan, by the way.
Take a drink.
The best coordinator I think I've ever covered at getting the most out of shitty to average personnel was a guy named Scott Schaefer, who had one bad year under Rich Rod. He had a good year in Stanford under Harbaugh. 2 years there. He was a head coach at Syracuse briefly. I think he's at Middle Tennessee State now. Anyway, they were horrible the year before he came in. And they had Louis Delmas as a freshman. They had some decent pieces here and there. But with a lot of the same guys, they were pretty damn effective at times. The next year, they were really, really good. And it was simplistic, it was aggressive, and they gave up some plays here and there, but they thought they were the shit. And he got those, and as soon as he left, an accomplished defensive coordinator came in, and they sucked, because it was complex, and it made them think too much, and whatever. It didn't work. They lost their confidence. They need to find a way to get these guys confidence in the back end and just play ball. And help guys get to the quarterback, all that stuff.
How can you do that if you can't get pressure and get the quarterback, or you can't stop anyone? But let me ask you this. So let me say, okay, you don't want to fire a coach, or you don't believe in doing that.
I say I don't believe in that. We just don't know if it's warranted or not.
Let me ask you when it would be warranted then. If they give up 500 yards against Maryland, Is it warranted then? You go to Ohio State and give up 750 yards. Is it warranted then? And then you come back home to Wisconsin, you give up another 500 and lose. You don't win until November. When do you wait?
It's warranted.
Just delaying the inevitable.
It's warranted to change the dynamics in that room and say, look, I'm a former defensive coordinator. I'm going to be in part of this. Or Harlan Barnett has been a successful defensive coordinator at times.
Yeah.
Like we're going to change the dynamics and how we do this and try to now. But it's also hard to completely change a defense on the fly in season. This brings me to my first hot take because there is a lot.
Sort of. That wasn't 1A.
I don't know. 1A, 2A, 6B, whatever it is.
Maybe we shouldn't get 3.
Yeah. There is a lot to unpack from the game, right? There is.
I don't know.
And
is there?
When you look at the personnel, obviously, last season when they had Kenneth Walker, and what we've talked about, we thought that was a 5-7, 6-6 team without him, and we're seeing sort of what happens without him. But this feels worse, and I don't think this is just the absence of Kenneth Walker. Like I don't think Kenneth Walker was the difference between 3 and 9, which this could be now, and what they were at 10 and 2 in the regular season in the games that he was playing. But I do think there is some reality in terms of where the roster is and that Kenneth Walker allowed them to have this year that was a lot of fun and felt like the rebuild. I've talked before about the sort of 2 parallel tracks. You have the actual sustainable rebuild, which is recruiting, changing the roster to try to build toward the dream of competing with the Ohio States of the world, right? And then you have what's happening in the season you're in and where you are. And those two things aren't identical. And while last year in some ways you could say, well, that was just you did have the great player, and maybe you have to look at that as an aberration on the rebuild, and that should just be fun and don't worry about it, and this is okay. The problem with it is, Mel Tucker and his staff absolutely leaned into that. Mel Tucker got paid out of that. He got a $95 million 10-year contract out of it. He's got 3 guys on his staff now making over $1 million. They became big-time coaches out of that. They became championship coaches or paid like championship coaches out of that. And so it does change expectations. It does change that dynamic with fans because, and I get that it's not directly, your money if you're sitting at the 40-yard line. It's some of your money because you pay a lot for those tickets, but that the Ishbia and
Dan Gilbert.
I wasn't Gilbert, but Steve
Jobs,
Van Zant, whatever. Fucking
Stevie Van Zant, little Stevie
Van Zant, fucking A. Well, I'm not even going to look it up because I don't care. It's irrelevant right now, and people are yelling at me.
But I don't care if these guys are making $100,000 a year. This team is awful to watch.
Here's the thing: what yesterday was a bottom of the Bobby Williams, John L. Smith, era type loss. And look,
listen to what you just said. That's so scary.
But good coaches have had those. There have been really bad losses for D'Antonio, and I'm not. And it's not. Look, they're married to Mel Tucker. This isn't.
No one's saying Mel Tucker get fired.
Correct. Totally.
Come on.
Totally. But I do think that the reason, and I wrote this in the column today, the reason people wanted him so badly at whatever cost and feared losing him was not just the possibility that he was going to be a great recruiter. That was part of it. And we've seen some of that play out already. But it was this sense of competence from the Miami game to maximizing who they were, to the Michigan game, to the quick fix on the roster at certain places. And the problem now is what you're looking at on the field, even if they're able to keep all these recruits, and that could become an issue if the season really goes south, but what you're looking at on the field doesn't feel like competence. And that's, I think, frustrating, disheartening for people, a little scary for people, because wait a second, what? This is supposed to be, and it shouldn't look like it did yesterday. It should not look like that, even if they just lost in 2 straight weeks to the team that winds up winning the Pac-12 and the team that winds up winning the Big Ten West. It should not look like that. That should not be your response. And I'm not saying their personnel is fine. And look, they've tried to sort of, patchwork the roster as they build this with the transfer portal. And maybe there were some mistakes there in the sense that some of D'Antonio's guys who kind of left or ran out of the program might have been worth developing versus some transfer dudes, But regardless, they've tried this way to to make the roster decent while they build overall the depth of talent in the program. You just can't have what you're having now. Good coaching can avoid what you're having right now. You don't need this while you're getting to whatever you're going to become. And because the 2023 class isn't going to be around and infiltrating the roster and making a big dent until the minimum of 2024, 2 years from now, really 2025. So if you're looking for years where you can hold, if you're looking for a year where you want Mel Tucker, where you want to be able to hold him accountable as being a guy who should be able to compete with Ohio State, I don't think it's really fair until 2025. But that's not this. Like, if they get their ass kicked by Ohio State, that's fine. That is what it is. Ohio State's in a different stratosphere. But in Minnesota might be a really good team. You might lose them. And if they had lost 30-24 to Minnesota, or even 30-20 in a competitive game where it's like, wow, that Minnesota team's pretty good. And at the end of the year, like, wow, that people will live with that. They may be, it's too bad they're not better than I thought.
Yeah, but it felt like they weren't in Minnesota's stratosphere.
Correct. It felt like they weren't
both sides of the ball.
It felt like they weren't in Washington's stratosphere.
No,
and
I know Washington's going to be good this year, but still, if you're not in those guys on both sides of the ball, I think that's what hurt the most against Minnesota. Like I said, not getting much on the offensive side or anything at all, pretty much. I mean, that sucks. You want at least one side of the ball, like last year, the bend don't break D. If you guys could just tackle here and there, and the offense can handle things and score 35 points, but obviously that's not going to happen this year either.
And Mel Tucker, he acknowledged a lot of stuff, including needing to play tighter coverage, which we haven't heard him say, which, again, he said, there's nothing wrong with the scheme. Well, the scheme has been part of this bend but don't break coverage. And I think the Monday presser will be interesting. I think the decisions that are made moving forward, because there are going to be the next 2 weeks. I mean, what happens at Maryland will be fascinating, and then Minnesota or Ohio State could be a bloodbath. This could be a really ugly month. And how you part of coaching is keeping people's heads up, keeping confidence, keeping your recruits in the fold. One of the better recruiting jobs Mark D'Antonio ever did, and most of those guys, a lot of those guys aren't around anymore, weren't around early in the Mel Tucker era, but the 2017 class that pretty much stayed firm to Michigan State during that 3-9 season. That was an impressive deal. It wasn't as vaunted as the 2016 class. But those guys didn't have as many options as the guys Mel Tucker's recruiting. And so that will get interesting as well. What is your next hot take?
And by the way, in your column, I like that. Where's that at? Oh, the MSU defenders also didn't realize Minnesota quarterback Tanner Morgan would be so fleet of foot. And he had 3 attempts for 27 yards with a long of 15. I know he had one on a big third down, but really was he fleet of foot?
Well, I think he was also fleet of foot just in the pocket. I think they were talking about all that. They were a little, the pass rushers were a little surprised by how well he moved.
All right.
But whatever.
On to another team, the Detroit Lions. I got to say, grit. I don't know. I don't want to sit there and say Dan Campbell. I don't believe in Dan Campbell, but today's game didn't really help, especially with going for that field goal at the end of the game there. I mean, how do you go for it on fourth downs constantly, which I enjoy, but you wouldn't have to go for it on so many fourth downs if Jared Goff, if it was 3rd and 8 and Jared Goff throws it fucking 4 yards and you get tackled and then have to go for it on 4th and inches all the time. Jared Goff, I understand everybody's tweeting out how great Jared Goff's numbers looked in the first half or in 3 quarters, but he's a terrible quarterback, and he gives you zero confidence as a Lions fan. You don't want to root for him. You know if you're down 7 points and there's a 2-minute drive, it's going to take 9 minutes to get down there. But why kick a field goal? A touchdown's going to beat you no matter what. There's an argument. You should have punted the ball. Maybe try to pin him down there because every team I fucking root for has a great punter. I don't want to know what the punter's name is anymore. I don't care about punters. I never want to see a punter ever again in my life. But if you want to, make the argument that maybe they should have punted that ball instead of kicked a field goal and missed it and give it to Minnesota, and you're not even gonna get to the quarterback or blitz Kirk Cousins. The thing about it is, what scares me is everyone loves these guys, but it's gonna get old quick. And it's a half-ass, whoever has a half-ass cheek and 2 fingers, we're going to kick their ass. Then why are you being a pussy when you're up 3 and you need to get a first down to end this fucking game? Why not? You had them all game in Minnesota, too. That would have been a big win. I'm sitting there and I'm buying in, and, of course, it's the same old Lions, and then, at the end of the game, then you feel like a complete asshole.
And he acknowledged afterwards that he screwed up.
So what? Of course he's going to. He's a guy's guy, and that's great, but the shit gets old after a while. Yeah, maybe I should have done that. Well, why not?
Yeah.
Do you not know game situation football? I mean,
so today this brings me into my third, second, fourth B take. Today was the least amount of fun I've ever had watching a Lions game, and it shouldn't have been that way. And it's my fault. I had a few parlays on the Vikings. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do this the other way. I just don't think this is gonna go well. But the problem is, and we've talked about this before, it winds up ruining the experience because now you're rooting for the Vikings. I just needed them to win. I don't even need them to cover. I just need them to win. So it's like minus 220 or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And then the Lions are up, and it looks like they're going to have this great game, and they're playing well. So I'm frustrated because Kirk Cousins drives me nuts, and I can't find Alex Carter on the field anywhere. No, I'm kidding. But so I hedge it. I hedge the bet. So now I'm not making anything. And then they wind up winning anyway. So I took away all my chance to win money. But that's a horrible way to watch a football game, number one. But the bigger issue is I love the aggression at times, but Dan Campbell does not have a good feel for things in the game like that, of when to do it and when not to.
I think he's okay, yeah. I don't mind it. There's sometimes when he's supposed to go for it.
Correct. But what I worry about is, like right now, if he grows into the job with this team, when this team's playing, when this team's a 6, 7, 8 win team or whatever, I can deal with that. But the more decisions he makes that you go, I just worry this team gets to the point where they're in a playoff game and he's still making decisions like that. Like, I worry that's just part of the fabric of who he is.
Well, he's by far not the worst NFL coach. Nathaniel Hackett hiring an assistant coach to help him run with the game management.
As they all should.
Yes, these guys should have those guys.
These guys should have, because if it's all you have to focus on as a coach, well, it's easier than having a bunch of other stuff.
Well, Nathaniel Hackett calls the offensive plays, I guess, or whatever, so he gets, but still, that's no excuse. Other guys call offensive plays or defensive plays. Yeah. But, yes, everybody should have, in a booth where you have 19 guys up there, you see them, the TV cutaway, and you see all these guys. There isn't one of those MFers that can sit there and run the clock for you. I just thought it was a terrible, like, if you trusted your defense that much, I just don't understand why you kicked the field goal there, because if you miss that Minnesota has good field position, and it was just disappointing because it felt like that game almost was like, okay, we're going to turn the tide. Like, we're getting some of these like plays and calls that are going your way that good teams happens to, and then at the end it's the same old Lions. And I met some people at the card show on Saturday. They're like, listen, I just don't like the Lions anymore. I can't do it. And they're older guys. And I'm like, I don't blame you. Wait until they're good and then come back if you'd like. I don't know why I do it. I don't know why I sit there on Sundays. I feel like a complete buffoon. I do love football Sundays, but to sit there and root hard for the Lions every week, it's just it's really just deflating as a fan. You can't talk shit because we haven't won anything ever. So
do you have another hot take?
No, it's not great. It's just about Apple TV. I miss Pujols' 2 home runs to get up to 700. I'm sick of Apple TV, and I paid $24.99 for the MLB fucking package, and I'm sitting there, so I had to put it in the other room while I was working on the card show on Friday night. So I missed both home runs because we don't have Apple TV in the card craft room.
Yes, streaming is not better. It's just not better. It's just not. I mean, it is not better.
But if you're going to stream it, and I have the MLB app, let me see it there. Right? Or whatever.
Right.
I don't know why there's so many apps.
There should be packages that supersede. Yes all that. Yeah. No.
Anyway,
it used to be better. Before we dig into your hot takes here, want to remind you, and especially if this is incredibly important if you've just watched the Lions and probably Michigan State this weekend. If you go to skymint.com, you can enter for a chance to win a supply of Skymint Reserve products through the end of the year free. All right, that's free weed through the end of 2022. Go to skymint.com, and you'll see it there. One night at the Shinola Hotel in Detroit. Also, dinner reservations for two, $100 gas card, and other cool things. Go to skymint.com, or just swing by any Skymint location anytime, and especially if you're going into a Lions weekend and probably an MSU football weekend from here on out. Skymint is going to be incredibly important this
and I'm
football
sure you'll
season.
see me there.
And you'll probably run into the Rube. All right, let's dig into to our listeners' hot takes.
All right, Eric Schultz up first. Number 1, anyone who didn't partially see this coming doesn't know football. I love those parts. 2, we are now seeing why Peyton Thorne was a MAC recruit who almost lost the job last season to a guy who got benched at Temple. 3, it's fair to ask if Mel Tucker is the right coach for MSU. It can't look like that.
It can't look like that. It's a good way of putting it.
I like the you don't know football.
Yeah. The Peyton Thorne thing is, like, I mean, if you just go pound for pound NFL quarterbacks, and I mean, those sort of positions, the MAC's put as many guys in the NFL as the Big Ten in recent years. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, defend the MAC, man.
Yeah, I'm going to always stick up for the MAC. You know that. But, yeah, no, look, this is a real test for Mel Tucker because I don't think, and maybe he's the greatest recruiter in the world, and a 3-9 season won't interrupt his mojo and his momentum. But I can't imagine how. I mean,
9.5 mil. That's all it's going to be talked about.
I think if you get to 5-7 this year and you're competitive, but the problem is right now you're not that. So if you're still on the rebuild and your team's hanging in there and you have a game that's you're competitive against Michigan or whatever,
but why are we using the rebuild word?
Well, because it is a rebuild.
After 11 wins last season.
That's where there is a little bit of a. I mean, they still have talent issues. This is not spin. This even last year. I mean, they were not. They maximized who they were last year. They were not an 11-win team last year.
They weren't, but they're not. They shouldn't be a 5-win team.
No, they should be. Year. They should be better than this. They should be better than this. I mean, I thought absolutely. I thought the 7.5 over under was worth people taking the over. I didn't think it was the greatest thing in the world, but I thought 8 wins was like a reasonable type thing. I thought that's about where this program ought to be. And, and I understand that there have been some issues in recruiting in terms of when you look at, Mel Tucker did not get his true first year because of when D'Antonio left. Then the first year he does get is the Zoom kids, And so I understand that it's not really even year 3 when you talk about recruiting and where you are in talent in your program. But again, it shouldn't look like
you
this.
Want to hit me with that excuse, and again, you're not at the Ohio State level. I understand, but if you're at the 5-win level after an 11-win season and you're talking about a rebuild to me, then why am I going to games?
Good coaches can better maximize what they have than what MSU is doing right now.
Correct. Dominic next. Number 1. So Scotty Hazelton does nothing but watch Newsmax and eat fried chicken naked all week. Then his defense is AIDS. We all obviously bitch about the defense, and we get penalized with less hot takes. So ultimately, Hazelton gives me a shit-fucking product and fucks with my podcast. LOL. 2, nobody expected 11-2, but no showing at home for on the heels of last week's third trimester abortion is alarming. And 3, Jay Johnson is the type of coordinator that would stand outside his best friend's wife's house with cheese dick signs professing his love for her before walking away like a little bitch he is. # weak male character.
Yeah, I'll disagree with you on the Jay Johnson weak male character. I hate weak male characters. I love Les Mis, can't stand Marius. Can't watch Ewan McGregor
What about
anymore.
standing outside his best friend's wife's house?
No, I mean, I hate that. Love Actually, that's the worst scene in the movie. I hate that character. I hate that whole storyline. Not a fan at all. Jay Johnson I find fascinating. I think he's interesting. I think he's smart. I think he's a really good coordinator. I do not think he had a good day. And there were a couple plays in particular that stood out. He obviously couldn't get them in a rhythm. But the other problem they got right now is not just having the running game. The defense is on the field so long that the offense, but they've got to find a way. They've got to understand that this might be what it is. You cannot go 3 and out when you get the ball. You got to find a way to get that first down to get something going. And when you're 3rd and 10 and you throw a 3-yard out, or you're, 3rd and 4 and your offensive line isn't blocking anybody, and you run Jalen Berger into a brick wall. I don't know if that's your play. I think he's but I think Jay Johnson's. My opinion of him is still that he's a really good coordinator.
Maybe next. Number 1, the money is an easy distraction. Haller solved the Saban MSU problem, even if it turns out Mel isn't the coach. MSU is doing the right thing by being competitive with pay and supporting the coaching staff. let the money go and focus on minimum standards. 2, the broadcast booth claimed MSU had no identity. They have an identity. Other teams' offense looks at our team as lunch. Lunch. 3, this bizarro world where I'm happier turning off MSU and the Lions are decent must end. The Lions are decent, whatever. Bonus take. Listening to last week's show right now, it's clear I'm living in Jason's head rent-free. Appreciate you, Rube.
I love it.
What'd I say?
You said, when you were talking about how to win the gift card, you were like, you either have to do this, kiss Graham's ass, or be maybe.
Yeah. So why is that rent-free? And I just thought about that. I thought you would give it to her or someone else. With good.
Right, and I'm pretty sure Michelle will win it at some point.
So I was right.
Because she has good takes.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what I meant. I meant that she was going to have good takes, but not just for being her.
Yeah.
Are we going to answer?
Oh, yeah. No, actually, I do want to get to her number one here. Because this is an interesting point. The money is an easy distraction. Haller solved the Saban MSU money problem, even if it turns out Mel Tucker isn't the coach. And so, in other words, it changed who you are as a program, your minimum standards for a coach, the type of coaches you can bring in, what you're willing to do to have a big-time football program. And that might be an important move, even if Mel Tucker doesn't work over time. I still think let's see where the recruiting goes. I think most reasonable people aren't like throwing the Mel Tucker era out. I think the frustration is it looked like MSU had certainly struck gold last year. You had competence in the moment, maximizing what you were, all the little things, and the recruiting. It was like, holy shit. And now you're not seeing one side of that. And I think people are like, And so it's a little bit, let's see where this goes.
Matt Boone next. Number 1, the worst thing that happened to me was watching MSU's offense be inept, and I got rear-ended by a car on the highway going 80 miles an hour. 2,
Matt, I'm glad you're all right, by the way.
How do you know he's all right?
Well, we communicated on Twitter after it happened. Because he wore...
Or that he got his 3 hot takes in.
No, he wore a Couch in the Rube sweatshirt to the game and took a picture.
Well, I guess we know who's getting the gift card. 2, Noah Kim will start the next game. 3, Scotty and Jay both suck, but the only one is wasting talent. Just in case you don't know who I'm talking about, it's Jay.
So that's an interesting hot take because I don't think Noah Kim will start this game. I do think sometimes, a couple of these are interesting because sometimes the quarterback situation gets caught up in this.
Caton Hauser then?
No, I know it'll be Noah Kim if at any point. It doesn't seem like that's the issue. However, having said that, the quarterback just turned the ball over 3 times, and all 3 I think were his fault. But I don't think what's happening overall, I think you can win at a pretty high level with Peyton Thorne if you have the other things going on around him, and right now everything is kind of shit. But the Noah Kim thing it'll be interesting to see if people see it differently than I do. I think Noah Kim's a promising player. I don't think promising players should just sit forever just because they're younger. And if something isn't working with the older player, so I'm not going to say that either. But the idea that there is a point though, if the offense and defense are struggling, and you can say the defense should come up with something else, but there is more talent on the offensive side of the ball. The problem is if you can't run it, it's not on the offensive line, and if you cannot run it at all, it gets incredibly tricky.
DeYuper with everyone's favorite 1 hot take. If this type of play continues, it will also tank Mel's recruiting tactics. Doesn't matter how many luxury cars you can borrow from Ishbia or how cool you look with a cigar. There's no swagger to sell about this program right now.
All right, this is the Hopcat hot take of the day, presented by Hopcat, of course, the best damn beer bar, world-famous Cosmic Fries, mouth-watering, award-winning burgers, including the Peyton Thorne burger, which, regardless of how he plays, is an appetizing 2 smash patties with American cheese, bacon, sunny side egg up, served on a pretzel bun with those Cosmic Fries. And one of the things, and I keep mentioning this, but I do love, is they do local beer as well. Carefully curated craft beer from local partners wherever you are in the state or region. Lots of TVs to watch the game and hang out with friends as well. And the winner of our Hopcat Hot Takes of the Day gets a $20 gift card to Hopcat, and that will go to DeYuper this week. So we keep sending them in, and every week we'll we will have a $20 Hopcat gift card to send out. So the point about the recruiting, though, I think this is one of the this is going to be the most fascinating part of this fall if things go south. Like I wrote in the quick takes after the game, the idea that you may want to turn away and just tune back in on signing day. But in some ways, you don't want to do that because you don't know what's going to be left on signing day. Like I think following how interested these guys are, whether they can keep guys who are clearly going to be recruited by other schools, clearly have interest elsewhere, whether they can add 4 stars and add talent to that program, even if they're having a rough year, is going to be the thing to watch. And if they can, then if they can do it during this year, the flip side of this concern is then they're set in terms of being able to recruit talent. And Mel Tucker will tell you, they put together a pretty good class last year, the freshmen this year, and they did that largely before the season began. So most of the guys who were in the 2022 class had nothing to do with 10-2, nothing to do with 11-2, nothing to do with anything that happened there. And so, and maybe it helped keep those guys or energize them. And it certainly helped produce some of the 2023 class, and maybe it'll affect 2024. But sometimes I think we overlook how important winning now is to recruiting. The question is, it's not just about winning and losing. It's if the program if it feels like the wheels come off on the season, if it feels like every week it turns into a blowout, if it feels like the players are down, if it's hard to find good energy around the program, that's what they've got to fix. That's what's at stake. It's not just this year. This year, I don't think they're going to make a bowl game. But if they wind up 5-7, playing okay, with a win somewhere that maybe isn't expected, and the vibe around the program is okay, then all this stuff might be all right. I think that's
if you were a recruit on Saturday and you were watching that game. What do you take away from that? People
it's interesting.
Are booing the quarterback, the players.
I saw some recruits who were there. A tweet from a family who said still had a great time. Tough game. Like it depends on you. It depends on who your people are, what matters to you. Like
shucks, tough game, son.
Well, no, what I mean is if you go to a place and if you like the people and you have an incredible vibe, sometimes you just know based on a place you are, like what are you looking for? Some kids will be looking for the biggest NIL payday. Some kids will be looking for, I want to go win a national championship right away.
We need 5 stars to come on campus and fall in love with a girl, and they have to move. Like they have to come to Michigan State because they're in love, and they don't want to be without their love. Right? I think it's something crazy is going to have to happen.
That's what I would get in trouble for if I were coaching college football. I would have as many girls. Because when I was 17, and granted, if you're a 17-year-old football star, your high school love life is probably better than mine was at 17.
Just a tad, yeah.
But still, like I would have fallen for anybody, and I would have been like, I got to go there. That's where I'm going to.
You
college.
Want to be with me? Okay.
Yeah, I'm there.
I'm coming to Michigan State.
That would have been
not for Michigan State for this lady. Rich Searing, my only hot take: if Kenneth Walker was the only thing that kept last year's MSU team from looking like this year's team, he's not only screwed. He's only hot in here. He not only was screwed by not being invited as a Heisman finalist, he should have won.
Certainly, you can look back on it now and go, that guy was the Heisman Trophy is supposed to go to the best player. It doesn't usually do that. He may have not been the best player, but he probably was the MVP.
How much better do you think last year's O-line was than this year's currently?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. I don't know entirely. And I've watched the last 2 weeks back, and the offensive line has been worse than I thought both weeks. And
because Berger and Broussard are good running backs.
That's the thing.
They're maybe not Kenneth Walker level, but I think they're serviceable running backs.
But I think Walker was, and Michigan State doesn't have one of these guys right now. Not even Jaden Reed. Maybe he is 100% healthy. I don't know. But, that guy that it just doesn't matter who you're playing. They're just better. Like he was injured during the Ohio State game and everything went wrong, but that's not really a good example. But against Michigan, that was a better roster than Michigan State had. It did not matter. That man went for 5 touchdowns. It's the T.J. Ducketts. It's the Charles Rogers. It's the Kenneth Walkers. It's guys who are just at a level that you put Alabama on the field, they measure up. It's fine. And if you just take a little notch down and you can go, well, Jalen Berger and Jarek Broussard are good backs. I think they're both very good backs, very good high major backs. But they're not quite that dude, that level player. And then if the offensive line is just slightly less, which I think they are, it all, it becomes an issue. And then I think it's taken a minute. Like, peak Jalen Naylor was really effective opposite Jaden Reed. And I think Keon Coleman, while I think he has a tremendous upside and has shown some of that, I think he's also a guy who's a few times not been in the right place or whatever as a young player. And so I think so it's just, I'm not going to use the term inches I just did it, but I think a lot of little things add up as they say. And that's why you have something that really wasn't that much better than it is now last year, looked a lot better on the field, at least offensively.
Jeff Peterson, over the past 40 to 50 years, MSU is basically a 500 team with a smattering of 10-2 or 11-1 seasons, but also a fair share of dumpster fire 3-9 or 4-8 seasons. You are who you are.
I mean, that's why they paid Mel Tucker. The idea is to not be this anymore, and the idea is to eventually live in a stratosphere that is not.
But also, Michigan State didn't have a better option, and Mel Tucker was in the right place at the right time.
But he was. But
Tucker's track record isn't crazy proven where he deserved that contract.
No, but he recruits at a level that is, I mean, and he was also somebody Saban recommended. Saban said, you ought to take a look at this guy. I mean, this was this is not, and Saban cares about MSU. If Saban was 10 years younger, I think Saban, here's a hot take. If Saban was 10 years younger, I think Saban would be MSU's coach today.
Really?
Again, I do.
Huh.
I think he would have come back and finished the job. Hot take.
Wow.
Out of
where
a
was
whim.
that? A half hour ago.
Could have used that in July, huh?
Yeah.
There's
a column. Your best take. Ken Shue. This is the worst MSU football I've seen since I sat in the student section during the Muddy Waters era.
Oof. Man, Ken, I'll remind you, there's been some bad MSU football since then at times, but this last week was rough. It was non-competitive, and that's
if rough means ass, then yes.
I mean it.
It was brutal.
Yeah, that was a bad game.
JD next. Number 1, everyone thought I was nuts after I said MSU would go 7-6 after the Western game. At this point, we'd kill for them to go 7-6. 2, yes, Jay Johnson and Hazelnuts are fired by season's end. Tug makes too much money to not make changes. And 3, Tanner Morgan is bald.
See, this is why I don't want to get rid of the third hot take. I love that hot take.
It's not really hot, but yeah.
But it's awesome.
He was a bald guy.
Yeah. No, it's funny because sometimes you see these college guys, you're like, how old is that guy? And you don't
very
look
quick on his feet.
Yeah, he was.
It's alarming how fast he was.
Yeah, at this point, 7-6 would be. I mean, getting to 6-6. I think every MSU fan would settle for that right now. Wouldn't you?
No, I don't want to settle for any of that. I don't want to sit there and go, 6-6. I'd settle for that right now, Graham.
Well, I mean,
I don't want to settle for that. It's complete. I don't know.
I don't know.
Am I settling for that? No,
they are not.
I'll take 5-7. I'm
going to tell you right now, 6-6 is the ceiling for this team.
I know,
because if you're looking for 4 more wins in 8 games, and you look at the schedule, maybe Maryland is a chance, right? Okay, Wisconsin might be asked to. So let's say you could actually win those 2. You're not. I know the Michigan game, Ohio State. Let's forget it. I know the Michigan game has surprised us at times. I just don't see it right now.
Oh, I don't either.
Illinois is going to be tough on the road. So I guess you could conceivably get to 7 if Illinois, Rutgers, Indiana all went your way and you won these next 2 weeks. I don't see that happening though. I think the ceiling for this team is 6, and that's assuming they find a little something that sparks them and they get a little more swag. That looked like a defeated team at the end of the game, and I've seen those seasons go the wrong way. The
gluten weasel, embracing the one take idea. All I have is this: going forward, it's not about winning for MSU. They won't win again this year, except for maybe Rutgers. They need to keep it respectable when they can and figure out who they have for next year. That's it.
Yeah, it's. I mean, and the thing that's interesting is, people will do some comparisons to 2016, and I wrote in the quick takes there was comparisons to the 2016 game against Wisconsin when you first went and the 2019 game against Wisconsin, which was a bad response game after a tough loss to Ohio State. But 2016, that at that point, MSU's roster was coming off of the 3 straight, great seasons, the 36-5 run, and still had some guys. Like that offensive line, if you look at their rushing stats that year, they were pretty good. They lost 17-16 to an undefeated Ohio State team that year, and L.J. Scott had like 170 yards rushing. Like that was not – they were at times even – they just didn't have a quarterback. And if you – and some people say that right now about Peyton Thorne. Bullshit. If you put Peyton Thorne on the 2016 team, they get to 6 wins. And but if you put the 2016 offensive line on this year's team, they'd be in a lot better shape. They get to 8. I mean, like, it's a different component. But the one thing that you got to watch at the same is when heads drop, when they feel like they're losing hope, when they've lost any sense of, any sense of swagger or confidence.
Steve Beckman next. Number 1, MSU's D was doomed against Minnesota because they never shifted or changed anything after their QB looked to the sideline. 2, MSU will cover against Ohio State because the line will be ridiculous. 3, the bad beat at the end of the Steelers-Browns game will happen again this season.
Did you see that?
I sure did.
Did you have money on it?
I did not.
Okay, good.
Thankfully.
That's bad. When when you think you've won a bet, and I think there was something with was it Pat McAfee had something. There was like some huge, might have been through FanDuel or somebody. They had a huge boost that paid like plus 700 for all their people. I don't know. It was some huge thing that they thought they had won.
If it's not the Firekeepers iCasino app, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's right. Good way. Well done, sir. All right, let's talk about this one. Ohio State line. This is interesting. On the Firekeepers iCasino and Sportsbook app, what would the Ohio State line need to be for you to take Michigan State based on what we've seen with these two teams recently?
47 and a hook. I would buy the half point.
You'd buy it at 48? Yeah. If a line is 47.5 and you're buying a half point, don't bet that.
1-800-GAMBLER calls you.
Then you really, really want
to. I don't know. I don't know. 42.5 it might be. I don't know.
Yeah,
obviously it depends.
And it'll depend a little bit on what we see.
Oh, it'll depend everything on that.
Yeah.
By the time we get to Ohio State, it might be 50-something.
Well, that's just 2 weeks. But yeah, no, if they go get smeared at where are they at? Maryland this week, then you go that could be. Oh wait, when is Ohio State? Yeah, it's 2 weeks.
Let's go.
Yeah, I think the line will be. It'll be fascinating to actually see what the line is. Because I don't know to what point it would probably, for me to tell people to confidently take Michigan State right now, it would probably have to be in the upper 40s to feel confident telling people that's a smart bet.
Were you surprised about the Maryland line?
What's it, 3.5?
I saw -3.5. Someone said 4.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I think people are still, like, if you're Vegas or anybody, like, it's still hard to trust Maryland football.
But Maryland at home? And what they showed in the big house?
Yeah, but they've often collapsed. And the other thing they don't know is...
Well, it's still Loxley coaching the team. I mean...
It's still health of the quarterback. And Michigan State, people are like, well, what's going on here? I think there's still a little of that, too. Like, wait a second. Is this for real? They're this bad? Or is this... And so I think it's a hard... And to be honest, if you really know, if you're confident in Maryland and confident in Michigan State's ass, then it's an opportunity to make money. I think it's just hard for bettors, but also the books to really understand. They're trying to pick a number where the money will go on both sides too, and I think that's a hard thing to do right now.
Couch on fire. I think this was a bad year to not have Nebraska and Northwestern on the schedule.
Certainly would have been better to have those two the last 2 weeks. To have teams that are Northwestern it's remarkably bad. They just lost to Miami, Ohio, and SIU in back-to-back weeks.
Incompetent.
I mean, it's
fire Fitzgerald. Am I right?
You're not going to do that. I mean,
give him his 25-year ring and get the fuck out.
I don't know who you'd get that's better than that gets that place. I mean,
nobody.
But Sherald could have a couple. I don't think there's a Power 5 program in the country that could go 0-11 2 straight years, or 0-12 2 straight years with the coach and survive it, other than Northwestern and Pat Fitzgerald.
There would have to be some sort of scandal or something.
Right.
Nick Stenholm next. The offense deserves as much blame as the D. They've run 12 plays in the first quarter of the last 2 games combined, hanging a subpar D out to dry.
No question. And it's, you can say, well, the defense is or the offense is constantly out there, the defense is constantly out there and can't get off the field. And while that is absolutely true, if the offense puts together an 8-play drive, even if they don't score, it changes the dynamic a little bit. Like, they've got to find a way to be out there. The problem is they can't run the football right now, and that's why it comes down to, like, the way I would handle gambling MSU, and I'm not sure I would tell anybody to do that, and I know fans don't want to bet against them, but I think the live line right now in MSU is the play. For or against, because
but then you have to watch it.
You could tell in that Minnesota game pretty early, like, this is a problem. and so I think that is, you'll know pretty early against Maryland. The thing that makes Maryland dicey to bet on against anybody is you just wonder if they're going to have a guy who catches a kickoff off the face mask like happened against Michigan. Like, that sort of play seems to be in Maryland's DNA. Like, they'll do something stupid that'll give the other team a chance.
Jordan Mack next. Number 1, MSU paid Tucker $95 million for the result of 2 games last season. His teams have been outscored by over 100 points in Big Ten play. This is like one of the texts I get. These games aren't outliers. The Michigan games were the outlier, and MSU panicked and paid for the results of 2 games, one being COVID year and last year. They lose 8 out of 10 versus Michigan.
This is the best tweet you'll get for an MSU fan. This is a tweet would not happen. No, Twitter wasn't around in 2004. But if it was, this tweet wouldn't have happened. Michigan paid you no mind. This is where you are in the Michigan fan's head. And it's not is where Michigan State exists. That they're actually concerned about this. That they're actually, that now there's still this idea that, winning 10 of 14 years, forget that, they'll lose 8 out of 10 versus Michigan, whatever. And maybe he's just talking about those 2 specific teams. And you might be right. Like, last year's game, I think Michigan State would lose 8 out of 10 times to Michigan, and they won one of the 2 times is the one that hit. I don't. But here's where I push back a little bit, Jordan, and I appreciate you always being a good sport with us.
Is he?
I think so. I like Jordan.
No, I know.
I think MSU, certainly the way they beat Michigan, got everybody fired up. Beating Michigan twice in a row matters to Michigan State fans. Matters
Magic
to Michigan
Johnson
State.
tweets. Well, no kidding. Yeah.
Yeah. But I also think that people saw other things that excited them. I think that Miami game last year was a big deal. The way they went down there, the way they owned Miami late in that game, all the stuff that went in, the nutrition, the preparation, just looked like he had a different level of competence, a different program. Just the whole operation looked like next levels. And I think people fell in love with that. They saw the idea that he could possibly recruit. And it was like you also saw the fear of letting a coach walk away who wound up being Nick Saban. And they were willing to pay to avoid the fear. The column I wrote was basically, this is the cost of avoiding regret. And if you wind up, as Michelle, as maybe said, if at the end of the day, the worst thing about this is, and it's not really MSU's money. MSU paid a lot for him, but the stuff that took it to $95 million and $9.5 million a year, if at the end of the day, the worst thing you did is raise the standard for your program, what you're willing to pay, and the type of resources you put into it, into recruiting, into everything, then that's okay, as long as people understand it's not like this isn't coming out of a food bank's money. This isn't like the Greater Lansing Food Bank does not get
that Brett Favre would steal.
Yeah, this is Brett Favre, right?
I love people that on Twitter were tying everything into Brett Favre. That was the best.
And it is amazing because people think, well, nobody did anything on the. Brett Favre's a former athlete, and something that happens when you're not in the limelight anymore. Yes, it's a big story. Yes, he seems like a 4-star douchebag.
Right,
but he's also
is Brett Favre like a big name that draws people? I mean, us old school football players or football guys like us and Doug Warren and stuff. But it doesn't really move the needle.
If he was a present day quarterback, this would be the biggest story out there.
Right,
and
don't compare it to Vic killing dogs. Like, I know Vic, he served his time, came back, everyone was fine with that. But Jesus, how are they in the same stratosphere? South of Munn next. 1. I watched some of the President's Cup golf this weekend. Spectators wearing golf shoes are hilarious. Do these fuckholes think that if Justin Thomas gets hurt, the team will ask them to step in and play? Bonus. Mark D'Antonio never did or would allow his teams to get embarrassed in back-to-back games.
Okay, these are good. I did not realize the spectators were in golf shoes. That does seem like a bit.
Well, if you're going to walk the course, though.
Yeah, it's true. You're out there and you like the feel of it. Yeah, I can see that.
Gives you some grip.
Yeah.
And also, there is a long shot that all of a sudden they hand you a club.
Like you win some raffle or something goes on.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to a tennis tournament once in Indianapolis to watch like Roddick play James Blake or something like that.
And Roddick stopped the match and said that guy right there was great in high school.
He didn't, but one of the things you could do is you're walking around the grounds is they had like you know how you have at a baseball game, you have that speed gun to throw into and you have to guess how hard you throw it.
A radar gun, yeah.
Yeah, that's where I always throw out my shoulder throwing 64 miles an hour. But in tennis, I can serve a lot harder, and I was excited. I saw they had one of those. It was on an actual court, and I wished I was wearing better tennis gear. I mean, I did it in not anyway, and I wish I was wearing my actual shoes.
Why? Because you would have played?
No, I would have been. I don't know. Yeah, so I can. Maybe you just want the feel. But yeah, I'm totally with you. I disagree on the Mark D'Antonio thing though. That he never. I mean, 2019. So you think about that stretch. Hold on, give me some Hoff for a second.
I can't stop this feeling deep inside of me.
So in 2019, so it's back-to-back games. I don't know. Like in 2019, they lose to Wisconsin 38-0. Then they lose to Penn State 28-7. Then they blow a 4-touchdown lead or whatever to Illinois 37-34. Then they get beat by Michigan 44-10. I mean, there was a. I mean, again, that's at the end. This is not supposed to be that stretch of the Mel Tucker era, but it's not like D'Antonio didn't have those moments.
Molon Lobby Spartan. Number one, the unfortunate reality is that we don't have a good football team right now. Unlike against Washington, there's literally nothing positive to take from this game. We may struggle to go bowling. And two, I hate booing from our fans. It's a terrible look. Players and recruits hear it.
So, like, my dad was somebody who always didn't like booing, like especially college kids. He just wasn't a fan of it.
But what if you're booing the coaches, though?
Yeah, but it's hard. The kids feel like it's them. It's hard to know.
Well, then it's not you.
I mean, what if we had a different sound for coaches, like caw, caw, instead of boo, boo, caw? No? Does that not work? So it's the adults?
Why you sound like a crow? Like that would be.
Well,
weird.
I don't know how to
so
do it. We'd have to have a different because caw. It sounds. I don't know. I don't know where you. I don't know where you. What you do, but I do understand like the
caw,
and know, and I mean, if it's an issue though, Mel Tucker should get in front of it. One of the things Mel Tucker should say, because not to quote PJ Fleck, but he used to talk about everybody rowing the boat together. That was the whole idea, right? Fans, the whole organization, everybody. And if you think that matters to recruits who are there, and you think that matters to then. If you're Mel Tucker, what you got to say is, "Hey, games like that, I get it. I would feel that way too."
Yeah. If you play like incompetent ass, you're gonna get booed. That's what you do. You sign up for.
Here is my voicemail or personal email. Email me and send me how you feel. But if you take it out there, it hurts the future of the program because it hurts recruits. Yeah. If you feel that way, I don't know that recruits are that fickle.
G.E. Miller next. Put this staff on the hot seat. This team looks incompetent and like it's going in the wrong direction in every facet. Seeing 3 and 4 wins at best and 3 and 4 recruits will decommit. It feels like the last years for John L. Smith and Bobby Williams. Starting to think Walker was smoke and mirrors to 11-2.
Yeah, I mean, I was not around at the end of the John L. era. The Bobby Williams era, I mean, I was in school and I was paying a little more attention. Like, that really felt like, I mean, Bobby Williams did not seem like the CEO that Mel Tucker does. And, and they had a fair bit of talent in that program, too. It just felt like the wheels were really coming off. Now, John L. Smith, man, I just don't, you're not going to put Mel Tucker on the hot seat a year after you gave him the contract you did, and when you've got the commits, like what are you going to do better? Like who are you going to go get? You scrap recruiting, you put the whole rebuild back a couple more years to hope you get somebody who can not only recruit like Tucker, but then also is able to avoid the 2 games that he just had with a roster that's not that good. And ideally, you'd have somebody who could avoid those. But what happens if the next person comes in and they have 2 of those games and fuck that, I will keep trying. I just don't.
But people aren't talking about Tucker. They're talking. They want Tucker to fire like a couple of his staff or something, or one person if it's not working out.
Yeah, and he's got to identify. Yeah, right. You got to hold your staff accountable. I agree to that. We're so quick to fire this guy. I mean, how about never do we say?
But how long do we have to wait
this.
around?
Well, I don't think you have to wait at all to say, hey, work on solving this. What is the plan to solve this? And that's a fair question.
Andy Welsh next. Number 1, Ohio State's going to hang 70 on MSU. 2, there's no formula for an upset win anywhere. 3, coming out flat against the Gophers after an encouraging second half in Washington is absolutely crushing.
Yeah, that's partly what fooled me is, I thought I picked Michigan State to win, obviously, so I have the pulse of things. But I thought after the way they finished, I thought the passing game at minimum would be pretty good. Like I thought Michigan State would put up points in this game. I thought they'd be okay there. And that's what the defense pretty quickly I was like, oh, that's okay. People are watching the film. That's trouble. The idea that there's no formula for an upset anywhere, I think, is interesting too. Because there is a formula for upsets, and it takes having certain types of players. It takes having a Kenneth Walker, a receiver who's really dynamic. I still think the formula it takes is having. We were talking about not having quite good enough a running back versus what Kenneth Walker was. The offensive line's a little less, and all that together looks quite a bit worse. If you face a team with a quarterback who can't quite take advantage of things, or you face a team with a defensive front that can't quite take advantage of MSU's offensive line, that's the formula. And even if Vegas doesn't know it.
Todd Trudisell next. Number 1, need to double down on the $95 million investment and start paying recruits. Games like these last 2 weeks impact recruiting. This was a John L. Bobby Williams game. And 2, who the F is evaluating these DBs we got in the portal? Good Lord. They had no answer since this staff arrived.
One point I would make is D'Antonio was as good as anybody I've ever seen at evaluating defensive backs. And Mel Tucker definitely likes to have guys who look the part getting off the bus, right? That's the thing. These guys look different or whatever. And I'm not trying to pick on Amir Speed here. I think Amir Speed is not necessarily the problem. But you would rather have Josiah Scott than Amir Speed any day of the week. And there's a underrated recruit that D'Antonio was able to identify. I think that's something that's lost a little bit here. And I need to go back. One of the columns I may do this week, I may go back and look at the guys who were around when Tucker arrived in the defensive backfield who left. And was there anybody that they really, if there are 3-4 guys that transferred out, even if they've gone somewhere and it hasn't worked, that doesn't mean they wouldn't have developed at Michigan State. And so, what were there mistakes made there? Because right now, it's when you look at that defensive backfield, there's no doubt, and it's just not good enough.
Cygnus X2 next. 1 big take. MSU players look like they don't know what to do. That leads to a confidence crisis. That leads to a moral issue. And eventually players stop listening and check out. Culture is the only thing to stop it. And right now, not sure MSU has that trouble brewing.
Morale issue. I don't think it's a moral issue. But
morale.
Morale issue.
It's a moral and a morale.
Yeah, no, I mean, a crisis of confidence is a big problem in athletics. I mean, we've all been there when you're like playing pickup basketball. Of course, I was going to go there, right? So
I can go to the bathroom now.
No, but what I mean is, when you can be a pretty average player, and if the people who are better than you or the game you're in value you, get you the ball where you can be successful, make you feel good about yourself, you can be a functional player in a game that you probably don't belong on. If they belittle you, if they make fun of you for missing a shot, if they just abuse you defensively, all of a sudden you become a useless freaking hack out there. And it's all about confidence. And you can take a pretty average football player with a lot of confidence, and they're on top of the world, and that needs to be what MSU figures out how
What games are you playing in? Getting made fun of. Like, Jesus, I just want to hoop. I want to run up and down the court.
I've seen other
Game 5 of the NBA Finals.
It doesn't really happen to me all that much. Although I played in a pickup game. I don't like playing outdoors, right? You get wind, you get sun, all that bullshit. I played in a pickup game when Joe Rexford was back in town, out on those courts behind Crunchies in East Lansing, and it was like the conditions were horrible. The rims were awful, whatever. But we found these courts, and we ran into these other kids who had a game, so we just mixed up with them. They're a lot younger, and I wasn't playing that well, and they didn't know our games. You weren't getting the ball where you wanted to, and I'd missed a bunch of threes. And one kid was like, "Man, you stop shooting." I'm like, "Fuck, you don't know my game." You're like, "Fuck you," But a lot of people aren't confident enough to look back at somebody who's not giving them the ball or not blowing confidence and say, "You're actually the problem." I don't know why we had to tell.
You are an absolute psycho. You can't even just go behind Crunchies and shoot hoops. You got to talk shit to a kid, I guess.
I know.
Good Lord. You don't know my game? Fuck you, old man. Ron Quixote. Number 1, the body language of this team looked awful all day.
Infighting.
Infighting. It said in zero fighting. On defense and hanging heads on offense. 2, I'm pretty sure I watched 72,000 people go through the 5 stages of grief over the course of 3 hours. And 3, Baby Tua may throw for 500 next week. This is not an exaggeration.
I'm really first of all, it's funny everybody calls him Baby Tua because I can't think of his name. Nobody can ever think of his actual name.
Tua Tagovailoa?
But his younger brother. Yeah, they call him Baby Tua. Hold on, we should look this up. Give me 1 second.
All right. Girl, you just don't realize.
It's like Talia or something. I don't know. Okay. Talia or something. I don't know. Whatever.
T-Dog.
T-Dog.
T-Widit.
Yeah. No, it was the crowd was interesting because, and I mean, I know people who left early, some who stayed, but I mean, I think there was early on. There's a lot of hope. Okay, last week didn't go well. Big Ten opener. This is fun. Day felt like a fall day, and you could just see the realization coming over people as that game went on that,
this is going to be ass.
This is going to be.
Looking at my watch. How do we get out of here?
This is going to be ass, and this season might be ass.
Yeah.
That you could definitely see. All right, let's take a break here. We come back. Plenty more of your hot takes. Couch and the Rube, presented by Skymint Premium Cannabis.
I can't get this computer to work. There we go. Hold on. Hopcat exists at the intersection of great beer and delicious food, complemented by music, art, community, and comfort. Home to a best-in-class beer experience served by craft beer experts. Guests can expect a casual, inviting local gathering place with some of the best damn burgers and fries you'll find in Michigan. Hopcat is proud to be an official sponsor of Peyton Thorne. Show your Spartan pride by ordering the iconic Peyton Thorne burger, created by the man himself. There is no better place to watch any Michigan State game other than the 50-yard line at Spartan Stadium. Stop by any of our locations: East Lansing, Detroit, Grand Rapids, Ann Arbor, Kalamazoo, and Holland. To plan your next trip to Hopcat, visit hopcat.com. Wherever you are on your cannabis journey, let Skymint Premium Cannabis be your guide, your friend, and your place. Whether you're curious about cannabis or a seasoned connoisseur, Skymint's knowledgeable staff will help you with a vast selection of products to choose from to fit your needs. Skymint believes access to the best cannabis helps people do good and feel good, so they grow it right here in Michigan, giving you high-quality, locally grown cannabis at highly accessible prices. Visit skymint.com for special offers and location information throughout Michigan, and use the promo code CouchAndRube20 for 20% off your first visit. Skymint Cannabis. You'll love this place. Come enjoy irresistible, award-winning, handcrafted donuts and locally roasted coffee at Groovy Donuts. Surprise your family or coworkers with special holiday designs and flavors, or put the perfect finishing touch on an event with a custom order. Birthdays, weddings, gender reveals, our friends at Groovy Donuts are your answer. Experience the Groovy Donuts difference for yourself on Lake Lansing Road in East Lansing or in Williamston. Get more information or place an order at groovydonuts.com.
Find Couch and the Rube podcasts on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Google Podcasts, CastBox, and the Rube's favorite, Podcast Addict.
Couch and the Rube, presented by Skymint Premium Cannabis. If you are had a weekend that didn't go your way, maybe take a day off, go to Skyman, have a Monday that goes your way, couple edibles.
Let's call in sick tomorrow morning.
Yeah?
Yeah, take the day off.
I'm going to go to Mel Tucker's press conference. I also think Tom Izzo is having their men's basketball for Michigan State begins practice tomorrow. So he's having an availability with probably updates on health on different guys and where things are. So,
do you think it's possible that you could get Mel Tucker to say, "Don't coach my team"? Is there a question you could throw at him?
Don't coach my team.
I don't know what Mel Tucker. Yeah, no, I don't think I could. I think Mel Tucker's too controlled for that.
Sure.
And
you're saying Izzo's off the handle?
No, but I'm saying I can get him to a play. No, but he thinks that's control. He's willing to say that. That's control for Izzo. I mean, he's not like flying off the handle. He's just like, fuck you, couch. That's basically what he's saying. That's.
Lakeside 2000. Number 1, MSU is the only Big Ten team to fail to consistently develop and maintain an O-line year after year. 2, MSU's shortcomings aren't fixable in season. And 3, defensive scheme sucks, but it's also talent gap. Good players can make plays in spite of scheme.
Totally. They don't have guys who that's I think what's very apparent is they don't have guys who defensively are just, boy, that guy stands out.
Well, what does Tucker say? You need how many guys on
3
each
or
side of the
4
ball?
difference makers.
So could you ask Mel Tucker who those guys are on the defensive side?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I don't. Well, but they don't have them. I mean, that's
okay. I'd like to hear it from Tucker though. Who he thinks?
Yeah, and is Jacoby Windman that? He clearly hasn't been the last couple of weeks.
So there's one.
Well, yeah. And do you how close are you to those guys? Having those guys, and do you think when the bigger question for Tucker isn't do they have them now? Because if they had 3 or 4 guys on the defensive side of the ball who were difference makers now, they wouldn't have looked like they did yesterday. The bigger question is, do you think, not counting the 2023 class that's yet to sign, do you think in the program right now, young players who have a chance to develop and all that stuff, that you have a chance, in fairly short order, within a year or so, to have that sort of talent on both sides of the ball? And that
I would hope so. I mean, you can offer playing time like some of the other schools like Georgia and Alabama can't, I guess.
Yeah, but if are they already there? And I would, if
you're even in that league anymore with the Bamas and Georgias, if you're getting,
Well, that's the thing. If that answer was an answer to the idea of playing with the very top teams, and we've just talked about earlier, it's what 2025 before I think it's reasonable to expect that, based on just recruiting and timeline and all that sort of thing.
But you have to clarify, right? It's to compete with the Ohio States.
Correct.
That's what you're
correct
for.
Correct.
But you still don't want to look so inept on the field.
Right.
Right. Mark, next. Number 1, allowing 3 hot takes instead of 1 means you realize the fan apathy is around the corner. 2, when MSU basketball misses the tournament this year, we will realize that the only positive moment this year was Graham and Manzier. Manzier. 3, Couch and the Rube will pivot to an all-Premier League pod by Christmas.
Yeah, I'll have to find a new co-host.
Phil Friend and Graham Couch.
Yeah.
Talk soccer.
Yeah, that would. Yeah, Jason would
Graham for about 49 minutes and Phil Friend for about 2.5 minutes. That's how the show would go. You will see some serious panic in me if like Michigan State is out on the outside of the bubble looking in like February. All of a sudden, you'll see me like in the corner and commercial breaks doing lifting, trying to get my. We might have to let you buy out of that though.
Buy out of it? People don't want that. Like, what would that mean?
Yeah, like you can pick between like another donut challenge or something.
What else do people want more? Okay.
Oh, I'm saying like Manzier thing. Let's just not even. Sorry, let's not even think about that.
Yeah.
Terrible season. Bo McJunkins, number 1. Mel Tucker's contract is the most overrated talking point out there. It's not your money. It doesn't affect the program being funded by 2 donors. We aren't sacrificing school funds or taking away from assistant money pools. Bonus. Herb Street can't make a pick, but we can watch Woodson and Howard get themselves off on set about Michigan, and then Joel Klatt needs a new pair of pants every time he says McCarthy. And Gus can hug Michigan players in Indy? Joke.
Yeah, but to Herb Street's credit, those guys probably should be better than they are. You know what I mean? Like, I do appreciate if you're going to be on the main broadcast of a game, not like having a prediction.
Why? You can't tell me what you think is going to happen in the game?
You can break it down. Just don't do a pick.
Why? Is it going to change the way he calls the game? He can't just go, oh, yeah, man, I was wrong on that pick. But anyway, I mean, we're all adults here. What does it ruin?
It's a fair point.
But I'm saying, like, what does it ruin that Herb Street would be doing? Or is it just a rule that's been passed down for ages and it's just stupid?
We've always done it that way, yes.
Yeah.
My
favorite thing.
Yeah.
Companies do.
And you're right, by the way, on the Mel Tucker money thing. I mean, it is and it isn't an overrated talking point because it never was going to be, whoever's money it was never going to be really felt by the random person's wallet. But it does raise expectations. And the fact that there was, whether there was contact from LSU or what interest there was, and, that, I mean, look, if somebody offers me $9.5 million, I'm going to take it. But the fact that last year unfolded the way it did,
another hot take,
changes expectations, and I think that's okay too. And I think Mel Tucker's just going to have to,
and it's fine to be brought up too when you're having a conversation about it. It's shocking when you see that he's making $900,000 a game.
And
what?
And I think the hard thing to do in terms of communicating certain things is it's hard to be really frank as a coach because you don't want your own team now. You don't want to say, look, the guys that I have now are shit, but the guys I'm recruiting and where this program can be. You can't really say that either. So he's in a little bit of a tough spot. Again, that has nothing to do with last week. If we were doing these hot takes after a 30-21 loss, it was ultra competitive, and Minnesota looks like a hell of a team, I'd defend the situation. They just weren't competitive. They didn't have answers. They came out and got beat the same exact way defensively as they did a week earlier by a team that prefers to run the football, and that shouldn't look like that. You should get beat a slightly different way. Maybe you get beat nonetheless. Maybe you're overwhelmed. Maybe it is a personnel problem. Maybe you got no answers, but it shouldn't look the same.
Chicken Shepherd, I could pass for 300 on MSU after a long Sky Mint sesh.
Well,
I don't know.
Sky Mint's good for a lot of things. I don't think it helps you in a Division I football game because you might just go, who was the quarterback from Michigan that just checked himself out? Devin Gardner, in that 2013 game. You might just be like, yeah, you know what? I don't want to take the hit. I'm going to go take a different kind of hit on the sideline. And
hit a what? Mojo Jojo. Number one, never in my 30 years of life did I expect to be more optimistic about the fucking Lions than MSU. 2, we'll really know we're off the rails if we see major players transfer and recruits decommit. And 3, San Francisco is the most overrated city in America.
Thank you.
And California doesn't have cities, just sprawl.
Yeah, San Francisco's. I mean, I want to say I like parts of San Francisco.
If it were cheaper to live there, would you like it? Or is it because it's like so expensive?
Yeah, I mean, here's my problem is I like Lansing. And so I view, and I'm not saying Lansing's I love living here, but I can understand why people would view some other cities like, Grand Rapids or someplace that they like, I love Marquette, whatever. But I view, like, to me, San Francisco as a city to visit certain times a year is awesome. As a city to live in, I would consider it half as desirable to where I live. So if that's the case, then the cost of living should be half of Lansing, Michigan. That's I look at things weirdly that way.
Sure do.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, I remember in
San Francisco, Lansing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Anyway, I think that is the true off the rails. The off the rails the season goes off the rails to things are going off the rails when you start to see if you get to a point where there's decommits and transfers and guys sort of bailing on the culture that's being built there.
Mother Tucker, up next. Here we go. Number 1, not too early to sound the alarm on this staff. Really. 2, Tucker is paid like a big boy. We now see if he can act like one, see if these guys keep playing for him or quit. And 3, this team has talent, but if you can't win up front, the rest is irrelevant.
I mean, the biggest loss, no, I shouldn't say it like this, because Xavier Henderson's absence has been felt on the field tremendously. Also a big loss has been Xavier Henderson in the post games and the interviews, because he was a great communicator, or is a great communicator, and he was blunt and he was obvious, and he still has the statement of the year, a defensive safety saying the season goes as far as the offensive line will take us. I mean, he just understood watching practice, watching everything, how that was going to impact things. And, he'd probably had days in practice where he'd seen them look good and the offense look good, and he'd seen them struggle and the offense couldn't do anything, And
is the offensive line one of the worst units on the field at times, though? I don't think it has been.
I didn't think coming in this year. Like, I still look at the personnel, and sometimes you have to remind yourself that just because you know their names doesn't mean they're good. Like, we sometimes do that with athletes. Like, I can name everybody, that means they're good up there. It's just not the way it is. But I really like Duplain as a player. Like, but they haven't gotten it done as a group for sure.
Spartan 18770. Number 1, the Spartans got punched in the mouth early and never responded. Not great, Bob. 2, Thorne is now on a short leash, and that isn't good for his confidence going forward. And 3, Jay Johnson calling a 4-yard pass on 3rd and 10 is the new version of the jet sweep.
Wasn't great, Jay. Was not great, Jay.
Did you see Kenneth Walker ran a jet sweep? He ran it for like 62 yards, but actually only gained 22.
Oh, because of how far he ran?
Yeah, and he said jet sweep, and I was just like, oh, my God.
Nobody wants a jet sweep.
No one wants it.
But it works with Kenneth Walker. Everything works with Kenneth Walker.
But is that Jay Johnson's play call, or is that a Peyton Thorne check down because he couldn't find anyone else?
That's a fair question. Well, no, it was a quick play.
Okay.
I mean, it was not like that must have been his first read. And it wasn't even that open. Like, I think he had a second defender come right down there. So that had to be the call. I'm sure in the design it's one of those things where you got single coverage, you throw it out, and he is able to turn it up.
I would rather have my quarterback throw a pick than these Jared Goff 3rd and 10s and throw it 7 yards and hope your guy can break a tackle and get the first down. That's not a fun offense to watch.
It's a good question. In Thorne, I caught the very end of Peyton Thorne the other day. I'm not sure that would have been of mine to ask that. One of the challenges of finishing the 3 quick takes post game is it is a sprint from the press box down to the press.
To melty moments.
Yeah, I do. That's the hardest part. Like, I'm in the bowels of Spartan Stadium.
Oh,
and I pass like the empty melting moments carts, the ones that are all locked up, or people pushing them away. And I'm like, oh man, I wonder if
for like a half second you think about breaking it in.
I totally pause. I'm like, yes, well, maybe I just me and a
Lansing State Journal columnist Graham Couch arrested,
found in a corner eating 7 melting moment sandwiches.
Twitter would be fun that day. Plus size softball dad next. Number 1, as the losses mount, we will always have cigars, Jordans, and dope photo shoots. 2, guessing Graham was able to finish 3 quick takes by halftime. And 3, we got bad quick.
Yeah, I was not. I never do them too early because you don't want to. I mean, you have to start writing at halftime a little bit, but you gotta they get massaged a little bit. But I never
30-0. I mean, you can kind of
start
there.
I never. Yeah, I know. I try not to write before halftime. Look, it is amazing though. The transitive property and sort of not knowing who is actually good early. Like, I thought Western Michigan was going to be decent. They just got hammered at San Jose State. They're not very good. Now, that's a tough trip across the way after hosting Pitt. I get that, they might have not just showed up for that game either, but I don't know if Michigan State got bad quick or if all of a sudden the 2 teams they faced early on just didn't challenge them in the ways they're weakest.
A.A. Ron. Next. Number 1, Hazelton, Johnson, Kapilovich, and Els need to go, just to name a few. 2, if Tucker really has confidence in his staff and makes 0 changes and we go 3-9 or 4-8, his job isn't safe. Get treated to the standard you are paid. And 3, MSU won't recover after losing 6 straight. No shit.
Yeah, well,
how can you?
Yeah, I mean, if you lose 4 more in a row, so 4 more would take you to, that's Maryland, that's through Michigan at this point, right? So Maryland, through Michigan. Yeah, so at that point you're 2-6 going into November, coming off a loss to Michigan.
And basketball starts.
People are paying attention to hoops.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's,
how's basketball going? Yeah. Greg Hardwick next. Number 1, inept defense and ineffective offense is not a good combination. My trip to Maryland is looking a lot less enjoyable this week. 2, I guess we shouldn't be surprised that Thorne is struggling with Kenneth Walker III gone and Reed hobbled. Doesn't look like a returning starter. And 3, hello, 6-6.
The 6-6 is a dream at this point. I'm telling you, it's any bowl game because seriously, 6-6 isn't look. It's below what people were hoping for this year. Like we would say,
I think what's sad is it's not an exaggeration.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all, because nowhere in the idea of getting to 8 wins did anybody think they were going to lose to both Minnesota and Washington. Now, we might have said those are tricky games and they could drop one, but they weren't going to lose like that. They weren't going to be to the point that they thought Maryland, they'd be underdogs at Maryland. Like going into this year, I thought there was a decent chance they could lose one of those 2 games, but they'd be 3-1 right now. They'd beat Maryland. They'd be 4-1. They'd lose to Ohio State. Wisconsin's a toss-up. So Michigan's a toss-up. That's what there just aren't that many toss-ups anymore. I mean, it looks like trouble for a month.
Anthony Armour next. Number 1, is Tuck prepared for the insecurity of the fan base and the PTSD from the end of the D'Antonio offense, which is now Tuck's defense? 2, Payton Thorne might be bad. Stunk 4 out of 5 games. 3, 15 of 24 games, the defense has given up 400-plus yards. How is that not the system? There are 5 DBs out there.
Yeah, that is sort of the
like no adjustments, really. I mean,
the defense is right, and the idea with Darius Snow was they were going to bring more linebackers in, and he was sort of this hybrid player, and that obviously was a big blow early on. Like I would love to see what would this defense like if you could replay all these games and have Darius Snow and Xavier Henderson in there. Look. They still don't have the
Noted newspaper columnist and radio host Graham Couch.
If you don't have the depth to withstand those 2 injuries, you still got a problem. But what I mean is, I would just love to, and I don't think they win either of these 2 games.
But the guys behind those guys are so inept. I mean, that's the problem. I get they're not the same caliber of player, but holy shit, can't stop anyone.
Yeah.
That's the difference, Graham. That's all it is. It's like I get what you're saying about the injuries, but you have to understand you're going to have those in football.
So but I also think number 1 is interesting here with is Mel Tucker prepared for the insecurity of the fan base and the PTSD from the end of the Antonio offense, which is now his defense. There is, every coach that goes into a place, you're dealing with a different history and a different fan base in terms of what triggers them and what sets them off and what they can tolerate and what they can't. And Michigan State fans have been through stubbornness or what they perceived, and I think the answer to MSU fans for a long time has been like, just can Dave Warner? Why isn't that happening? And I don't know if that's the answer midseason right now. I mean, you have to try to make adjustments, but is the answer just getting your defensive coordinator out of the program?
Yes. If the next 3 games the defense gives up at 500 total yards apiece, I mean, at some point, what else do you need to see? Is there another year where he can turn it around? I just don't know what the end is. I'm willing to be patient, but what the hell, right? Tell Mucker next. Number 1, Kenneth Walker, yeah, but Jayden Reed's absence is just as big of a loss. He was electric last year and made every big play. 2, Mel hasn't even been on campus for 1,000 days. Relax. And 3, seriously, Mark D should be defensive coordinator.
I don't think they would ever. I don't think Mel Tucker would ever do it, but it would not. But Mark D'Antonio, some sort of consultant, would, in helping identify. Because the thing Mark D'Antonio was great at was, defensive backs, and identifying talent. He identified talent of defensive backs just better than anybody. And so having that guy around,
pick his brain,
right?
He's a phone call away.
Yeah, and I just don't. You're a defensive guy. You've got other coordinators and former coordinators on your staff. I just find that would be a huge hit to the.
Do you think D'Antonio's like golfing one day and he just sees like a phone number that calls? And he's like, oh shit.
No, I think D'Antonio would do it.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I just don't think.
Man,
Mel
you were
would.
full of hot takes like that are just like sprinkled in the show here. Saban, 10 years younger, would have been back to Michigan State. Damn. Eric Larson next. Number 1, last year's MSU team was smoke and mirrors because of Heisman level talent at running back. 2, only 43 days until the opening tip for MSU hoops. And 3, men's, what is that?
U.S. men's national team.
Yeah, whatever that is. And England are going down at the World Cup. Iran and Wales advanced to knockout. Bonus, did I mention only 43 days until MSU hoops?
Yeah, the U.S. men's national team looked like complete ass against Japan. We'll see how they look against Saudi Arabia this week. But I am a little
Saudi Arabia. Man.
I think it's Saudi they play. It's essentially a friendly, but it's still.
Will the live tour guys be there?
Well, there are a lot of first of all, FIFA and there's a lot of corruption in soccer. You have to overlook that. Like the idea. No, there's a lot. A lot of countries play that have all sorts of regimes that aren't
like
great.
Qatar. If you go there to the game and have booze, you go to jail.
It's pretty messed up, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
I feel like they should say, look, you shouldn't have the World Cup. We shouldn't have done this. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to overlook that stuff.
But you can't drink anyway because it's 145 degrees and it'll just evaporate in your system.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, the fact that it's in Qatar is. Yeah. There's 43 days until the opening of MSU. Does that, when somebody says 43 days, that still feels like a ways off, though. 43 days
especially
feels like
when
a
you're
long
in
time.
Ingham County Jail.
Oh, yeah, if you're doing a 72 stretch, 43 sounds like a while.
Yeah, I'm here doing a bid, boys.
So when you were doing your bit.
Bid?
Yeah,
don't sound like a herb.
Well, yeah, sorry. You're doing your bid in 72 days in Ingham County Jail.
Uh-huh.
At what point did it start to drag? And
First night.
Oh, God, really?
Yeah.
First night the hardest, as they say in Shawshank?
Well, you sit there and you bring in, they give you like one of those things to sleep on that I don't even know what they call those things. Just like a sack with like feathers in it or something. And then you have to drag it across. And then everyone's like out and about watching TV and playing cards and shit. And then look at new guy. So you have to just, you have to decide like what your look is going to be. Like if you sit there and you show like you're scared, like believe me, it's not like any crazy prison shit you've seen, but it is kind of, if you've never been in there and I hadn't, it's just kind of like, oh my God, 72 more days. Well, that actually, it was 90, but I got 72 with good behavior.
So you thought you were in for, did you think you were in for 90?
No, I was in for 90 because I didn't know the system. Therefore, I didn't know with good behavior, like I get downstairs and wash some cop cars, that you get time taken off for good behavior. So
okay,
I had no idea. So yes, it was 90 days, and it was just, I don't know what the question was. Sorry if I even answered.
No. It's so. But at any point, like you're 43 days in, does it feel like you're
in the kind of the groove there? And
Yeah.
after that 43rd day, like I said, I was moved downstairs to where you could actually flush the toilet whenever you wanted, and there was luxuries and watching Tigers baseball and betting on shit. So that was, and basically, since I was a type 1 diabetic, I got out of doing any hard labor. Like there was guys that had to go out and like what was the fairgrounds out there, like the Ingham County Fairgrounds, and you had to go scoop shit, and they had to be outside like all day, and it was July, so I the diabetes, I'm like, hey guys, I cleaned maybe 4 cop cars total,
and how many
those
days?
guys would come back sweating their ass off, dirty, and I'm sitting there watching the Tigers game making bets, so they weren't very happy with me. But
I'm surprised you survived it.
Why? I have at least a look. I'm not like a super tough guy, but I can fight if I have to. But I had a kind of a look going, with my tattoos and whatnot and the shaved head, where it was kind of like,
That is a story we're telling, presented by our friends at Midtown Brewing Company. And on a great fall day where you were looking to watch some football and catch a good vibe, Midtown Brewing Company is also a great place to do that. They've got big screens. They've got good deals, happy hour deals. Also, it's just a fantastic menu. It's a really cool place. I think it's a great date night, great place for brunch on the weekends. Go to midtownbrewing.net to look at their menu and drink selection, or check them out on Facebook, or just stop on by 402 South Washington Avenue in downtown Lansing.
Professor next. Number 1, waiting on the Lions to save your weekend after MSU blowout is like eating gas station sushi, usually a losing bet. 2, Mel Tucker won't be the head coach at MSU's kickoff in 2024. And 3, MSU isn't this bad, but they are too banged up on D to be competitive. Down 5 and 6 starters, 5 to 6.
Yeah, they are beat up a little bit, and they got more beat up earlier than they did a year ago. But again, I think the idea was their depth was supposed to be better this year, and it really hasn't been able to withstand what they had. Mel Tucker. There's a hot take. Won't be the head coach of Michigan State kickoff 2024. I don't know what would have to happen for that not to happen, because it's not like some other place right now is going to pay him a bigger job, or he's probably going to leave.
But if this is a 3-win season and they come into the next season and they are 7-5,
they're fine. Yeah, they're fine. No,
okay.
So for Mel Tucker to be let go at the end of next year would take to me, it would take 3 wins this year, 2 wins next year, and things are just really spiraling. They've lost a bunch of recruits, and something really going wrong.
So if they won 3 games, his job would be saved.
No, let's say, well, I don't know what it would be, but if they're again, you're still in the rebuild. If they win 3 this year and 6 next year, and they're recruiting well, and you're saying, it's fine. It's
the
fine.
rebuild word. I just hate it.
Well, then you got to get.
I hear it with all my professional teams that I root for.
Then you have to, when you first see D'Antonio start to go down in 2018, you have to go. You're out. You can't allow programs to.
All right.
But
I think if Mel doesn't make any moves with some of the guys, Hazleton, or if there's other areas of the team that don't look great, and if he sticks with his guys, especially through next year, they win 4 games.
By the way, don't knock gas station sushi. I've had some good experiences with it.
What, shitting your pants?
No,
What do you mean you've had good experiences with it?
Because
What gas station has sushi, dude?
It's usually the same type of thing that they make that's at Meijer or someplace like that. It's usually in those packages that are pretty safe, that are fresh. And you have some deal with the company.
Like the fancier gas stations.
Yeah.
Derek Spartan next. Number 1, Mel is starting to sound like Mark D'Antonio late in his tenure, denying what we see on the field. 2, Winman should move to linebacker. He's too small at defensive end. And 3, if Mel wants to make it to year 4, he should start playing the young guys. If we are going to suck, get them experience.
Yeah, you don't want to lose. You want to play the guys who are ready. Yeah, I think they will reassess that a little bit, because he talked about 3 different sort of tiers of guys at the beginning of the year. They're the guys who are ready to play, and they're going to play. They're the guys who aren't yet ready to play, but you think might be ready at some point. And then the guys you're like, I don't think this person's going to be ready this year, and you have sort of plans for all of them. That second tier, you got to reevaluate. Are there guys, young guys who weren't ready at the end of August who you can mix in and hope to have some success with? Or you're right, guys who are out of position, Winman, they thought they needed a defensive end. Well, that hasn't gotten them anywhere. Is he better off at linebacker? They seem to have more depth there, though. These are all fair questions.
Ryan Rockwell next. Number 1, glad I got a free hot tub today instead of trying to find tickets to the MSU game. Holy shit. 2, Graham doesn't hate the trajectory of this season, and I don't blame him. Lots to write about. And 3, 2-5, 11-2, then 5-7 at best. One player really was the difference.
I don't, from a storytelling perspective, I do like story arcs that aren't always the same. I don't, I remember joking about wanting a 3-9 season when Michigan State actually went 3-9, before they went 3-9 in 2016, and I didn't think it was actually going to happen. And for a while, it was kind of fun in the sense that you were writing about something different, a type of conflict, a type of issues they hadn't had to deal with. But then it gets old. Then it's like, you don't want to see, people you're covering suffering, and that so that. But I do like people having to overcome things. I don't want things to be too easy, and I don't mind people being humbled once in a while, be it a fan base or coaching staffs or anything like that. And there's no doubt about that.
Some dude next. Number 1, I think Dan Campbell is taking this I want the league to think I'm dumb thing a little too far. The 3rd and 1, where they threw it downfield with like 10 minutes left, was fucking stupid. 2, Spartans football is listless. 3, Skyman did not make yesterday's game bearable.
You gotta up the dosage.
We need to hang out, some dude.
Yeah,
I'll get you there.
Yeah, it's
Planet Brisbane.
Skyman will get Planet Brisbane. There were a couple calls, and that's not Campbell. Campbell's not calling the plays. That 3rd and 1, and
but you can't trust Goff to make that play. If Matt Stafford is
right, but that one's not on Campbell. The 4th down calls are on Campbell, but not the 3rd and 1. He's not calling right now. And I thought they were pretty good on play calls until later in the game. I thought they called a pretty good first half. I don't know.
It was just going trying to kick that field goal.
How do they not have a kicker? Like, the only thing they had forever was a fucking kicker, and they don't have a kicker.
Uh-huh.
How does that happen?
I don't know. Didn't have a backup quarterback for a while either.
How old's Eddie Murray, Matt Prater, Jason Hansen? These guys still around? Get somebody. I don't get. I mean, there aren't that many jobs in the world. You got to have a competent kicker, especially if you're a team that. No, we're not going to get into this. Sorry.
Yeah, let's talk kickers till midnight. Max Spade, number 1. Last year, nothing went wrong for MSU football, at least at first. It was a charmed season. This year, everything has gone wrong after week 2. Mel and company are not as bad as this year and not as good as last. We probably overpaid for him. 2, Peyton Thorne is pressing. We won't win another game until he relaxes and lets the game come to him. Here, take my Xanax and some Skyman to boot. 3, the most important thing that happened in Detroit or Michigan sports this week was the Bojan Bogdanovic trade. Accelerates the rebuild. Pistons make the playoffs this year. Troy Weaver is the exec of the year, and Eastern Conference Finals in 2024. Book it. And bonus, queso and beer salvage bad football games.
I'm a big queso fan. There's no question about it.
Boy, this Bojan trade, you would have thought that the Pistons just made they swindled to get him. I mean,
I think he helps them. But
totally. He's a veteran kind of glue guy. I understand that, but Jesus.
Well, and it's interesting. We'll have James Edwards on at some point because James even thinks less of an impact than I do in terms of wins. Like I think it's 5 to 7 more wins. But I mean, James thinks there's still probably a sub 30 win team, and a lot of people think they're more than that. And I'll be very certainly before we start looking at season win bets and stuff like that, we'll have James on to sort of make sure we're in the right frame of mind.
And it was a great trade, don't get me wrong, and it's one that you have to make to kind of build a contender and a winner. I'm just saying, everybody pump the brakes. Sparty and GL, number 1, Spartans win 5 games max. 2, recruits will start bailing and mass with the first uncommitment this week. And 3, Tigers are getting better finally.
If it happens this week, that would be a telling beginning, and I think people would really start to panic at that point because it's like, wait a second, you're seeing the impact of losing. The
Tigers are getting better.
They are.
Okay.
They are playing better.
Okay.
And
who is?
The Tigers.
No, I know, but like who?
Well, they're beating people.
Oh.
Riley, I'm not watching the games anymore.
Great timing.
Yeah. Torkelson's starting to play a little bit better, They're doing some things. Because they made the change in the GM hire they did, I'm at least optimistic that it'll be worth watching this offseason to see what they do. I'm not.
Of course. We have to. What else do we have?
That's a really good point.
Gavin next. Number 1, I'd like to think that I've matured to the point where I can reasonably handle this loss. I can't. 2, Peyton Thorne should start the game against Maryland, but should be pulled for Kim or Hauser, preferably Hauser, if he turns the ball over once or twice. 3, I could pick from a plethora of issues with this coaching staff at this point in time, but I think what sticks out to me the most is their reluctance to give the younger guys and backups any looks. There was no reason for Thorne to be playing at the start of the fourth quarter.
So, first of all, Gavin, you're only 16 now. When I was 16, I would not have handled this well. I handled a lot of things poorly. Jason, you too, right? Would have handled this poorly at 16?
Yeah. I would have thrown something at the wall.
Right.
Yeah.
So
like Kelvin and Hobbes' book.
Which I still have, by the way. Those are great books.
I have one. It was one of my favorite things of all time. I had all the books when I was 15.
By the way, even today, like if you just want to kill an afternoon old school.
No, don't go crazy.
I
thought about that too with some Sky Mint, and I bought one. I got it, and I go, what the fuck? What am I doing?
It really wasn't. Didn't do it for you. It wasn't like a good YouTube rabbit hole.
I get these things when Sky Mint hits, and I'm like trying to go back to my childhood, and I bought some scratch and sniff stickers and shit, and just and then they come in the mail, and you go, oh boy.
It was okay. So maybe
great idea.
But yeah, so don't grow up too fast, Kevin. It will be. Look, I think the quarterback situation is something to watch. I do, and I'm curious to see their evaluation of Peyton Thorne. I think it's a quick one to go to, and it's also one that changes the dynamic of the team, especially when he's a leader on the team. And you do have to make sure you're not. You got to know where your issues are and why things are happening.
But is there a perception if you take Thorne out, even though you're really never in that game in the start of the fourth quarter, though, taking him out?
That you're benching him.
We're benching him, and then if Kim comes in or Hauser plays better, then there's that controversy.
And Kim has come in, and Kim comes in against some backups and a very different defensive pressure.
I know what Gavin's saying.
Yeah, but no, and I get it. And the other thing that's not fair though is it's not fair that if at some point Noah Kim in practice is better than or as good as Peyton Thorne. It's not fair to Kim just because he's a year younger in eligibility. He has to wait like that. It should always be a competition in that sense. So what you have to do is be able to trust the staff that they understand if that happens, and and would make that move if if it should be made.
Chris Eastlick next. Number 1, Jay Johnson has been more disappointing than Hazleton. We knew Hazleton might not be the answer, but Johnson had struggled to get Thorne in good spots. 2, we need to balance criticism with perspective. Yes, this year sucks, but acting like we need to fire Mel, especially after last year, is ridiculous. D'Antonio took a step back after 9-3 in 2008 to go 6-6 in 2009. And 3, someone remind me that Mel's first on-campus recruiting class are still freshmen. We are still in rebuild mode. That being said, it doesn't make it easier this year, and there still needs to be changes.
Yeah, you got to get more out of what you have. There's no doubt. And I think, again, it's these two parallel tracks. And Ohio State is one thing. When they play Ohio State and they get just the shit ripped out of them against Ohio State, the hot take show we do after that should be measured with perspective. Because that goal, that dream, what he's being paid big money to do, is 2-3 years away. But Minnesota, Washington, Maryland certainly, that you ought to be able to be more competitive with right now. And you ought to be able to find ways to do it.
Seth, 71-71. Number 1, MSU season is over, and all focus should be a top 25 recruiting class. If that doesn't happen, MSU made a $95 million mistake. 2, the new student line sucks and is not a good fan experience. The deep end turned into the shallow end real quick. And 3, Peyton Thorne, kryptonite is he doesn't value the ball. 6 INTs in 4 games. Fumble at the 5-yard line killed any chance of a ball game. And bonus, love this podcast. Thank y'all.
Appreciate you, Seth. Yeah, it was a bad fumble, and it was a nice play by the guy, but you got to protect the ball in that moment without question, and he didn't do it, and both the interceptions I thought were his fault in this game, and he's
is he trying to do too much? Is that what
I don't
excuse there?
Yeah, I don't know. It's there's no question that's part of it though, and that if he's going to get replaced at any point, I think it will be less about the offense moving, because I think they all understand what's happening with the offensive line is creating issues there. But I think if he's not protecting the ball, if he's turning it over consistently, that's here's the thing. So say even in the meeting rooms, not amongst the players or anything, say they're having conversations right now about, hey, do we want to give Noah Kim a look? To me, I'm maybe not doing it until after the Ohio State game. Maybe I don't want to have that be his, go to Maryland. I don't know. I'm probably waiting a couple weeks to see about it. You wouldn't want his debut to be in Ann Arbor probably either. They do have a bye before then. They'd have Wisconsin at home. Like, to me, if you were to decide to make a change in a starting quarterback, it would be the Wisconsin game, and it would be after 2 weeks of the struggles. And the thing is, every fan should want Peyton Thorne to play well and that not to be the case. Every fan should want Scotty Hazleton and the defensive staff to figure this out, Mel Tucker to figure this out.
Of course.
Want everybody to get in sync.
Yeah.
And so that's still got to be the
everyone wants that.
It sometimes doesn't sound like they want
Of
that.
course not, because this team is in shambles right now. It's embarrassing. What's wrong with saying that? It's big boy football. Let's go.
You're not. You're right. It is big boy football.
I just hate the excuses. But Andrew Zoiza next. Number 1, this season adds 3+ years to the rebuild as the 2024 recruiting class finishes ranked 35+. And that's only if Mel is a good coach, which is now in doubt. 2, Noah Kim starts against Ohio State. Not that it matters. And 3, there are 2 more winnable games on the schedule.
Yeah, and I wonder what those are for people. I think different people have different perspectives. Some people think Illinois will be a bear, and Indiana and Rutgers are those 2. I think all those 3 in November is a good stretch.
Do you really do that to Noah Kim, though? I know you just mentioned something like that, but against Ohio State,
it just doesn't,
even though it's at home.
And I'm not saying you can't put up some numbers against Ohio State still, but it doesn't feel like a.
What kind of numbers are you talking?
Yeah, no, I would, and I don't think the other thing is you put a lot into Thorne. I think Thorne has shown enough flashes. He's not played well. There's a lot of things going wrong. I don't know that unless you are sure that, and not based on what you've seen on the field, because Noah Kim has not been in any of the same situations that Peyton Thorne has. Unless you are sure based on practice that this guy's the better option for us right now, unless you're thinking that, I do not think MSU can. I just don't. I think you at least give it 2 more games. You see where it is, and you hope that that's not a decision you're making.
Jeff had us next. Number 1, Dan Campbell's poor game management skills will cost him his job. 2, Mel Tucker owes his $9.5 million salary to Kenneth Walker. It's going to be a rough season. And 3, the people calling for Hazelton's head need to realize Mel Tucker is a defensive guy too. He needs to be just as accountable. And bonus, Mel Tucker owes me $225 for tickets, parking, and food. That performance was pitiful, and that is unacceptable for year 3.
Yeah, I mean, the level of compete just wasn't. Well, I don't want to say they quit. They were just
Does
outclassed.
Tucker owe you for the food, though? I mean,
Yeah,
parking
food's
and the
good.
tickets.
It's still a beautiful fall day. It's still a good day. Yeah, I mean, it's still an experience. Not a great experience, but it's an experience or something.
You should work for Michigan State.
It's
an experience.
Dan, I'd be really good at like a really bad Power 5, a place that was like 1 in 10 every year, but they 1 in 11.
Guys, the experience is unbelievable.
it's
Listen,
an
I know the
experience.
60. Don't pay attention to the score.
It's an experience.
Yes.
Enjoy it.
Yes. Melting
Yeah.
Moments ice cream. End of tweet.
The thing I've always liked about and hated originally and have come to like about the way they did the Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell hires is they hired Dan Campbell first. At first I thought that's just stupid. You should let the GM hire his guy. But I love the sort of plausible deniability, like the idea that if they have to get rid of Dan Campbell at some point, Holmes can just say, this is my first hire. You know what I mean?
But that never works out either.
I know. I'm just saying.
Listen, if it doesn't work out, just get rid of both of them.
No, I don't think.
Nah.
Well, if the talent's in the program, if it's the coaching, then you don't get rid of the GM.
This show is so depressing. Sorry. Campbell and Holmes got to go after 3 weeks. Vanzy next. Number 1, this Lions coaching staff was the difference in that game. 2, going to see Spartan Stadium crowds dwindle after the Ohio State game. And 3, the Bojan Bogdanovic was a steal for the Pistons.
The crowds will be interesting. But, Wisconsin game, that's homecoming, I think, right? It's a mid-October, perfect weather. It's what do they have in November? They don't have a lot in November. No, they had a lot. Their schedule is heavily home.
It's a great experience.
Hold on.
Come to Spartan Stadium and enjoy the experience. Don't look at the scoreboard. Just have a Melting Moments ice cream sandwich.
So the games that are going to be not great, and I'm on a red-eye flight back for this.
It's always about you.
Yeah. Well, no, but yes. Sorry.
And your inconveniences.
No. I just might have stayed in San Diego if I don't think they're going to go.
Why not?
The Michigan State, the night before they host Rutgers on November 12th, plays Gonzaga on the aircraft carrier out in San Diego, and that is going to be a fun, hopefully a fun experience for him. Hopefully, it's a good game. Mm-hmm. The next day is Rutgers in mid-November home game, but they wouldn't have been home for a while. The way the schedule sets up, they would have been home for a month. So there's Rutgers and Indiana games. The Indiana game in the middle of, I think, deer hunting season, November 19th, could be really sparse. Yeah, those 2 November
Ryan Black,
games.
get prepared. You're riding solo, right? Pearson next. Number 1, all the momentum MSU football built last season is gone. MSU officially a basketball school again. 2, Thorne without K9 is a group of 5 level quarterback. He's had his chances this year. It's time to play for next season and see what Noah Kim and Caden Hauser bring. 3, Maryland is going to hang 60-plus next week.
We had a hot take at one point where somebody said, and forgive me, whichever listener this is, and let me know if you hear it. Yeah. Living rent-free.
It's all up here in this giant head.
Said that Peyton Thorne would finish his career playing for his dad at Western Michigan.
Oh. Well,
a little bit of a hot take, but you could see a scenario in which things went south because you don't have to sit out anymore. That he would go there next year and play. And again, I don't think that has to do with his level. I just if he weren't the QB, why would you stick around? Maryland's 60. I don't think he.
No fucking way.
I don't think it gets that bad.
I don't think. If it does, that hot take show.
Oh, goodness gracious, yeah.
Gideon next. Thought you guys might like a break from the Scotty Hazelton is ass, fire everybody. So here's 3 non-football takes. Number 1, IP Man is a great kung fu movie series you should check out. 2, apple cider is overrated, just overpriced juice. And 3, earthquake hitting during a hurricane is turbo ass.
It's not kind. It's certainly
Where
not.
was that?
Was that what? Is that what?
Earthquake and a hurricane? Jesus.
Yeah, it's not good. I should pay more attention to the news on a football weekend. I didn't. Hold on. I want to find out where that is.
I got you.
Highway to the danger
Get better, Chad. Rest up.
Right into the danger zone.
Lats was going to try to get to that game.
Yeah.
Not feeling well. It's like, dude, just.
Twilight, spreading out her
Oh, this is
wings
near
tonight.
Bermuda. Jeez. No, yeah, it sounds awful. The apple cider, usually love it with donuts. My one problem with apple cider is it's a little too much, for me, a little bit of a laxative, so to speak. I'm going to cut that in post. Shit. Writing right up into my rectum, and it was painful.
Kenton next. Why does Jay Johnson wait until they are down 22-0 or 17-0 before he calls for a forward pass? What was their strength? 2, why do the coaches keep kicking off to start the game when they know the defense is horrendous? 3, worst pass defense in football, but they rarely blitz. Confused.
Yeah, and obviously the offense was shit too, but I think at this point I would stop deferring to the second half. I would take the ball first and see if you can get something going. It's not putting your defense out there first.
Maybe you want to see the tempo. What's going to happen?
Yeah, you don't need a demoralizing drive the other way. 7-0 pressure on your offense. And I understand in theory there's logic in getting the ball to start the second half, but I think for this Michigan State team, you take the ball.
What if the Michigan State's defense had 5 Cal Hallidays? Would this be a different scenario?
What does that
I'm
mean?
not saying all play in line, just the way he plays, the spirit he plays.
Yeah, but he
They
can't
had 5
cover.
I'm not. All right, you're going to take it literally. All right, never mind.
Okay.
Bryant Lee, number 1. Michigan State will only win 3 to 4 more games if they're lucky. 2, Hazleton should have gotten the Herm Edwards special after the Minnesota game. And 3, nobody cares about soccer.
Thank you, Brian. The world's
And
most popular
then the
sport.
Hopcats hot takes of the day go to Brian.
Did you see the video of Herm
did.
Edwards coming off the field?
Are
Yeah.
we sure that's what they told him in the end zone?
I don't know. It felt like they were at least going to meet with him or telling him they wanted to. Because I think it was the next morning he was actually fired. But they at least.
I mean, there's no way they did that in the end zone.
I mean, I've heard stories of that. But yeah, it seemed.
I mean, unless Herm Edwards I don't know.
It's a rough spot to do it.
Yeah, that is tacky as all tacky.
Maybe you say, hey, we need to talk about some things. Let's meet tomorrow morning, but it feels like you can get that message another way.
I mean, to treat Herm anyone like that, it's crazy. But Herm Edwards,
and you're his bosses, so it's not like you don't have access to him. Like you're the AD
you can wait
and president.
till you can wait till after you guys get out of the locker room and
Yeah.
give the speech and shit, and get on a bus and talk.
Doesn't mean you have to get him. I've heard what are the situations where they don't let the coach get on the bus, and so that stuff's ass.
Is that true still?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's happened. Yeah.
Okay, Andrew Gauthier. Number 1, this season is a great example of how badly Kenneth Walker was robbed last season of not getting the Heisman. They should retroactively award him something. 2, I'm actually more excited for the Lions and the Spartans this season. It's bizarro sports world. 3, am I an official contributor to the LSJ now? When do I get my check? And bonus, Michigan fans are going to be unbearable this season.
So Andrew sent me a line. It was either through text or tweet that I borrowed for the quick takes about the offensive line not being able to push a shopping cart.
Ooh.
Bada bing. It was a good line. And when you're writing quickly, it popped right into my head. I was like, fuck it, I'm going to borrow it. That's
You have
great.
a writing staff now.
Yeah, Andrew's
Jay Leno.
He's on my staff. So here's a question. I do think this year for Michigan State fans is going to be unbearable with Michigan fans because I think they're going to be pretty good, even though I know they struggled for a while with Maryland. And the difference is again, 15 years ago, they would have just ignored Michigan State and you could have lived under the radar. But now you do live in their heads a little bit. You have poked the bear, so to speak, and you're gonna. It's not going to be pleasant. The thing you have to keep in mind is it's still a year. You've got at this point even if they win this year, it's 10 of 15, and people say, "Oh, that's history." That's recent history. That's now. That's present. It's 2 for Mel Tucker, and so you just got to stick up for yourself and try to get through it. And then the other thing I would always advise is Skyman.
Jay Riemenschneider. Number 1, not just the D. that offense from coaches to players have to be questioned now as well. And the biggest questions of all have to be about the head man in charge. 2, MSU got Washington ranked pretty high last week, and the same better happen for Minnesota, who is the best team in the Big Ten West, and it looks like an 11-team win with their schedule. 3, I hardly bet, but I watch a lot of ball and did a 4-game parlay. What we're betting because it sounded good. Didn't play money line like you said, Graham, just the spread. Wyoming and UCLA, Washington State, they got to be sick. I'll check, but damn, Indiana giving up that last TD. I'm scarred for life.
Yeah, we actually gave out some good picks. Indiana was not ever going to win that game because they had such a ass first half in coverage. I still think it was a good approach to a parlay, but they almost had the spread until the final.
Had good value.
Absolutely.
Jarrett next. Number 1, there are no dudes or guys in this MSU team, either because of injury or lack of recruits. 2, that was the most depressing home loss in 20 years. 3, Thorne is averaging over 1 turnover per game for his career now. Not saying bench him, but turnovers will end hope for the year.
Yeah, this team certainly can't afford them. And the hard part for Peyton Thorne is he has to be not only a playmaker for them, but careful with the ball. Like if you had an unbelievable defense, like if you had a 2013 defense and you're MSU's quarterback, number one objective would be don't fuck over the defense. Like don't turn the ball over. But you don't have a running game. You've got to create with those receivers. You've got to be a guy who takes some chances and makes some plays. So it's a balancing act. But the most depressing home loss in 20 years, that's saying something. I mean, that's and I don't know what dynamic creates that. I mean, obviously it was a deflating loss, and it certainly. I think if you had real high hopes for everything and everything was kind of going along swimmingly, it's a little bit of a thud. But there have been some other.
Sounds like a topic for Spartan Speak.
Or maybe I just start Tuesday show.
No. Oh, yeah, right, this show. Kurt Wisniewski next. Number 1, some Spartan fans are so soft. MSU's bad defense is a TLA, temporary limited assignment.
We didn't know what that was the other day. That's why he spelled it out for us. Thank you, Kurt.
Were we supposed to, though?
I didn't. Maybe that's a thing. I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, okay. For us to deal with. 2, the University of Alabama's game day and in-game experience is at another level, and no one is even close. 3, the Spartan offense should pass every down to set up the run.
Yeah, certainly once you know. I mean, the thing is you have to test it because if you run into a defense you can run again, it changes the whole game. Like if you can run against Maryland, and I'm not sure they'll be able to, then you got a shot, and you got to find that out quickly. But I do agree that you're in a spot now where you're like they ran the ball twice to open the game, and then they get 3rd and long, and they had to punt. I don't think you're doing that now. I just don't think you've seen what you are, and that's especially if your defense is just giving up a long drive, and you can't risk. You got your best shot at staying on the field is at least 2 passes there.
Sports Guy 1919. Number 1, toll roads are BS. 2, Chicago had these express lanes supposedly supposed to help traffic, but overrated. And 3, top 25 college football matchups don't feel like they mean as much when we know who the top teams are.
There's
some bad college football games out there, though.
What do you mean?
Just mean some of the top 25 games. You just know that it's just not going to mean anything at the end of the year, and these teams have no shot to compete. And that's why the 12-team playoff will be great, because you know that maybe some teams, is it possible they can make a run?
I see what you're saying. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah. No, because and the thing is you're trying to grow into a certain team late in the year. That'll be what's great about the 12-team playoff is it's like, all right, and there'll be a lot of teams that don't have a shot, but there will be teams that you go, boy, by the end of the year, this team could be pretty decent. You know what you need to be by the end of the year.
Clint One Ball Baney. Number 1, if this is a rebuild, then we may need to burn some redshirt years across the team. I hope it doesn't come to that. 2, with an offense as stagnant as MSU appears to be, it may be time to deploy a secret weapon, the jet sweep. And 3, holy shit, we miss Kenneth Walker Jr. And bonus take pet peeve. Spartan fans that call for coaches' jobs without having a clue about recruiting schemes or being able to name more than 2 players on an 85-man roster. Shut the fuck up and go back to playing Donkey Kong and eating Cheetos in your mom's spare bedroom.
One Ball Baney with the pet peeve.
We're dropping MFers now?
Yeah. No, I do. I mean, I do. You know, it is one of my, and I think I sometimes push back too hard the other way, but it's one of my pet peeves and things I can't stand is the quick to just fire. You know, just fire this or fire,
Why?
fire, 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 fire,
Why?
fire, fire. Because it's a human fucking being.
So what? And a human being that makes $1 million a year, the defense looks inept, so I can't throw a hashtag fucking fire Hazelton. Kiss my ass. I watch this team too. I don't know. I don't know all these schemes and all this other stuff, but I can tell when it ain't working.
It ain't working right now, but I'm saying I'm also about somebody having time to figure it out. And at the end of the year, if it ain't working, my guess is he won't be
Then
back.
you're going to be the same Michigan State program you've always been.
No, not if you're not.
Big. Like I repeat myself all the time. The big boys, if their defense was playing the way this defense is playing, there's some heads on the table, and that's okay. This is a big boy football. What are we doing? Stop worried about people's fucking feelings. You want to win? Let's fucking win. If not, then we'll go back and give the money to something else. Give it to the fucking swim program.
But I also think we don't often understand what the actual problem is.
Of course not. But that's the best part about being a fan is freaking out. That's why we have a hot take show. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I get it. There's some irrational fans, but there's some fans that are like, what is happening? How much time do we need to give? That's all we've been asked for as fans. Give it time. Give it time. Rebuild. Give it time. Well, fuck you. When are we going to start doing this? We get sick of it. That's all we're saying. I speak for all fans, apparently.
Absolutely.
Joshua Bishop. Number 1, getting serious Dave Warner vibes from Jay Johnson. I get it that you want the offense to be balanced, but if your line can't get a push, you can't keep running the ball. You have 3 very solid wideouts and an NFL tight end. Throw the ball until it kills you. 2, Michigan fans have every right to talk their shit. The amount of money Tucker makes and the slogans are low-hanging fruit when your team is just an embarrassment. And 3, thank God for the Lions. Maybe.
I don't get Dave Warner vibes from Jay Johnson at all. Like, if you go back to early Jay Johnson when they were struggling, like I remember, early Dave Warner. Dave Warner would come in for a while when they were doing a bunch of construction. They would on the North End Zone project. It was at IM West or whatever the turf bay in there, and they would have this makeshift press conference, and the offense was sucking, and this is like 2013 before things took off, and Warner would come out there and try, and it just wasn't, you know. And look, I personally liked Dave Warner. We got along well, and I had great conversations with him. But and he had one terrific year, and he had a couple good years. But I never thought he was the offensive mind that Jay Johnson is. Now, that ultimately it's about production, and Jay Johnson's got to figure out how to get the most out of this. But I don't see them as the same.
Rye Dog next. Number 1, the road to success is not linear, but the whole operation can't look this clunky. Kenneth Walker leaving shouldn't cause the entire operation to break down. 2, Peyton Thorne is trying to do it all, and his play is suffering as a result. And 3, stop deferring to the second half.
Yeah, I mean that's I at this point it makes zero sense, and
it has to be Tucker just wants to see how bad it's going to be.
Well, no, and the math of it is probably it says to do that, but the math also, Mel Tucker's math tells him to go for 2 every time, and I don't really know what that's about either. I think we different. Don't
coach my team.
Different math.
Jeff Oswald, number 1, congrats Tuck on joining Hoke and Jason Garrett on the Mount Rushmore of clapping coaches. 2, turns out grabbing SEC rejects instead of coaching up actual recruits isn't the best move. Excuse me, Jesus. 3, Tuck's embarrassing, struggling, and profusely sweating. And bonus, screw the state of Minnesota.
Jeff Oswald, not happy with the situation there. I mean,
Minnesota's ass.
I don't like to criticize people for profusely sweating because I've been there.
Oh, yeah.
Like an hour ago. But no, I do think there is. And look, I root against generally schools that overuse the transfer portal and hoops and football and everything to the degree that I want sort of self-correction on the system. I want people to realize this shit doesn't work. It's best to do it the other way, and to use it sparingly and where it's needed. And I think they've gotten some key good players. I do wonder if there are some guys who didn't stick around who might really be helpful right now, who didn't feel like this was the best place for them, and if they had, I don't know. Again, this is early on still. I mean, when you start looking at, a previous a listener wrote in about the idea that this is still like Mel Tucker's first real recruiting class are true freshmen right now. Like that's the timetable that happened because of Mark D'Antonio's timing when he left, and then hitting with COVID and recruiting with like a huge dead period and everybody on Zoom. Like it really is different than it would have been in a normal situation by 2 recruiting classes.
Mark D'Antonio, number 1. It was all Kenneth Walker last year, full stop. This is the only MSU football take that matters. Anything else is pointless conjecture. The emperor has no clothes. We were all in denial to think otherwise. 2, going off that, it was bullshit last year, but now it's even more apparent that the Heisman Trophy voters have zero credibility. Sorry, Graham. 3, I actually got to hand it to Chris Ilitch. Scott Harris was a home run hire to lead baseball ops for the Tigers, and I'm all in on his philosophy and vision for the organization. Expect a big overhaul this winter. All 4 Detroit teams now have competence in the front office.
I'm as pumped about an offseason with the Tigers in a long time because I'm curious to see what this guy can do. I really am. I'm hopeful that
2028, is that what we're
No, I don't. Because I feel like this guy would not have taken the job if Ilitch wasn't going to give him the resources. And I never have felt like that with Avila. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but Ilitch is going to give you resources, but it depends on, is he going to give you the resources to sign the $400 million contract? Guys?
That is the question.
Like I'm sure he's going to spend $100 million here and there, but is it the $400 million guys?
Yeah, well,
and he can lie to anybody,
right? And then when it's time to add that guy, are they willing to do it? Because I'm not saying you have to add it now when it's like you're trying to build up to something, but there comes a point where that makes sense. If that makes sense, I want them to do it.
It's intriguing what he's going to do with Miggy this offseason.
Yeah.
He said he's going to talk to him. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, that's going to be fascinating.
Like, are we going to say, hey, this has been great, you're not batting fourth?
Well, that's the key. I don't mind Cabrera coming back to play out his contract. You're paying him anyway. But the guy ought to be batting 7th.
We had a fun season. Yeah. He got his 3,000, then the 500. Now let's just go.
And what is that?
If you want to be a mascot, cool.
And this is where, again, if you think there's value in having him in the clubhouse, value in having him in the lineup some days to some degree, and you're paying him anyway, then bring him back. But if not, then this is where you have to show you're not cheap. Then you work out a deal with them where you say, hey, you know what, we'll pay you $12 million instead of the 18 anyway, just not to play. You know what I mean? You try and work out something.
You're going to have to pay him the whole thing. It's fine.
Yeah.
You've made your money off Miggy. Just let him go and pay him his money.
Do what he wants to.
This organization's paid way more worse contracts. Jordan Zimmerman, all sorts of shit. List is going on and on.
By the way, I still have a Heisman vote despite my column last year.
You're really proud that you didn't have one anymore. Why isn't it in your Twitter bio? I mean, you have it. It's just wasted away.
I think I have it. Nobody's told me I lost it. So
we should let the listeners vote.
That'd be fun.
Your vote, right?
Actually, we'll do that this year.
Okay.
Everybody votes, and whoever the vote is, without question, that's my Heisman vote.
Did we steal that bit from someone? I thought someone did that.
Oh, did they?
Fuck it, we'll steal it.
Yeah, absolutely, it's ours.
Yeah. Alec in Michigan. Number 1, Tualula giveth, and Tualula taketh away. A taste as old as time. Him throwing an interception into double coverage when he has a receiver running wide open across his face.
We're talking about Maryland's quarterback here.
Tungavloa?
Yeah.
To his brother?
Yeah.
2. So Michigan definitely looks...
I wonder if I can write that next week, just to his brother in every reference.
No one will say a word. Like, oh, yeah. 2. So Michigan definitely looks beatable, but they might have a Heisman candidate in the backfield and Blake Corum who can get them out of tough situations. Need him to stay healthy and have a K9 type of season. 3, looks like MSU decided to go with the sleep withdrawal strategy instead of the sleep bank strategy this week. Account overdrawn, no available funds.
So the Blake Corum is look, he was a great back last year, but he looks like a difference maker. And that's what Minnesota has in Ibrahim. Like that, when Ibrahim hit you, like, other guys got hurt elsewhere on the field. Like, he is a pro. Like that, and Michigan State just doesn't have that dude. They don't have Blake Corum, I don't think, right now. That level of player, and there's no doubt it makes a difference.
Stephen Douglas. Number 1, I'm not sure if Tucker is a great coach, but I think he can be a great CEO. Time will tell. 2, not convinced Thorne would be the QB this year without Walker last year. He struggled last year when the run wasn't working, and Walker made them all look better. And 3, I'm almost more disappointed in MSU's offense. Jay Johnson needs to accept they can't run the ball. Set up Thorne with a plan to get in rhythm and be creative in ways to compensate for a bad run game. If Thorne isn't looking better after another half, a backup deserves a chance.
They probably are getting to a point, and again, I think the next 2 games are important games for Peyton Thorne, and you do get to a point where if he's turning the ball over, and ultimately they have a better feel for who Noah Kim is a quarterback. But at some point, I often say about quarterbacks, it's not really the coach's decision, because when you put them on the field, it shows up. But you also have to put them on the field in comparable situations, and so at some point, if Thorne's turning the ball over, you got to give the other guy a chance.
Jason with an E. Number 1, red flags are all over the place with MSU football. Jacoby Windman came out and said that they expect the run but should be ready for anything. Really? A, that was being prepared for the run. B, I think the whole stadium is expecting for any team to air raid against that D. 2, Windman's comments are alarming enough, but right on time. Here comes Tuck pretty much telling Windman to hold his beer by telling us he has complete confidence in his staff. Even if you do, the fans don't. And you aren't helping by commenting that way. Jesus Christ. 3, if Maryland doesn't bobble that ball the first play, they win that game. Michigan has the same problem that will bite them that MSU had. Co-coordinators is not going to work.
You got to stick up for your staff. Until you're not, like, you can say I didn't agree with this or we didn't do this well, but you have to have faith in them. And he said, one of the reasons that he thinks they can get it fixed is because of the guys he has. And that's the absolute right thing to say. You want, until the moment you make the decision for a change publicly, you are 100% behind them. It's got to be the way it is.
Matt Venny, number 1, Jay Johnson needs to be getting some of the heat Hazleton is getting. Running the ball on 3rd and 4 while only averaging roughly 1 yard per carry has been going on since 2020, as well as calling long developing pass plays with a crap O-line. 2, MSU will go 4-8 this season with close wins over Rutgers and Indiana. 3, Thorne needs to demand more from his teammates instead of trying to do everything himself. You can see him pressing, and it's hurting his play. True leaders are not afraid of confrontation. And bonus, everyone's favorite bonus. The stadium erupting in cheers for an incomplete pass on defense for a first down on offense is more damning than any boos this team will hear.
It does get to a point where you recognize it when it's like it's almost
that was Matt's best take.
Yeah,
because I remember that and I was like, "Damn, dude, that's embarrassing."
It is embarrassing, and it's
right.
It's I think it's embarrassing if you're there, if you're a player, and you can.
But it's hard not to boo when you have that many people in the stadium and you're just all looking at each other like, "What is going on?" I think people, obviously, fans support the team when they're playing well, but when it's just WTF, you're like, what's going on? Alex James next. Number 1, MSU fans need to stop worrying about what Michigan is doing and focus on their school. Saturday was a perfect example of this. 2, Jalen Naylor was evidently irreplaceable. And 3, all the best to Spartan mega fan and musician Chad Latz as he prepares to battle cancer. # Chad Strong.
Yeah, and Chad has a GoFundMe out there that he put out there for himself, which sucks that he has to do that. But just so people know, it's out there. If you and Chad's an interesting character. I'm not saying you got to approve of everything he says and does.
Listen, the guy's horny. What do you want him to do? He just needs to dial it back a little bit. We're all horny guys. We just show it in different ways, and we're working on it. Good luck, Chad.
Yeah, abso-freaking-lutely.
Senior Riverboat Tubin. Number 1. The Goo Goo Dolls are one of the most underrated bands of all time. Wow. 2, MSU hockey is poised for a huge year after the renovations have been completed. And 3, singing Don't Stop Believing as a karaoke song is a cop-out. Shows you have no talent. And bonus take, Lat Strong.
So this is good. I like these. The Don't Stop Believing is a karaoke song as a
Sweet,
cop-out.
no, Sweet Caroline is
Yes.
much worse
Yeah.
because you get the crowd involved. I was with someone that did that. And I was like, oh, you chicken shit.
Yeah,
Because that's such a. It's like everyone. How can you not sing along? It's like at 11:30 at night. Everybody's hammered.
yeah. Sweet Caroline is the go-to of
Oh God, yeah.
yeah. It's much so. And MSU hockey will be. Look, they've recruited well. They've added some interesting pieces. They got the renovations. Like I am as curious about that is like you got a new coach. There's new energy. I still think this year. I mean, I don't think they're going to be that great this year, but I think that Adam Nightingale did a good job of rescuing what looked like it was going to be a really rough year. They were losing guys left and right. I thought it could be an embarrassing year, and I think they'll be solid at least.
Jeff Shaper next. Number 1, the coaching staff spent too much of the offseason taking pictures with Ferraris and not enough learning how to actually coach football. 2, how many pledges are actually going to want to play for this staff? Tuck may need to make a change or risk losing them.
So, I mean, that's really the question is, what is he hearing from recruits? What is he able to say? And you might be able to say, look, we need you. And we're going, this is part of the process. We're not that far away, but we need you. And this has been a tougher year for a couple of reasons, but this is going to be sweet when we get it rolling. I mean, you got to
Now, hear me out. 2025, we're going to start competing with Ohio State. You guys got that much time? Or?
But you start as a freshman.
Yeah. Call me Al next. Number 1, if this is what it takes to end Deepwater, keeping chopping and all that rah-rah speech, then I'll accept it. 2, if the fix is Hazleton starting in the press box and rushing down to the field in the fourth quarter, then I quit. 3, a bald middle-aged quarterback picked apart MSU's defense. I don't know for sure, but I think he lacked Big Penix energy. Please don't claim it's not scheme anymore.
Good stuff. Call me Al. And I know people who do and don't like. Look, 19-year-olds buy into this stuff. They buy into keep chopping. If I had a coach tell me, like, if they told me keep chopping on my Monday night co-ed soccer league, I'd be like, all right, I suck as it is. Please don't tell me that. But yeah, and I do know that gets old for people. I think the deep water is here to stay though, and the deep end at least is the student section. I think that's a thing now.
It's all great when you win.
Yeah,
right. It's easy. Rivalry trophy. Number 1, Minnesota looked like a peak D'Antonio bully squad. October going to hurt. 2, I hope one day Fart Soup says the most beautiful, eloquent, and wise thing so I can tell my wife and she can ask, who told you that? Fart Soup did. 3, the deep end and woodshed and Tuck Cumming can sure get old quickly.
Yeah, and look, and you're not alone in people feeling that way. The Tuck Cumming, I know a lot of people they're tired of. By the way, some of these later on in the show are fantastic. We spread them out. I don't just like, this one's not as good, we're going to put it later. Like, we need decent takes late in the show, so they get spread out. How in the hell
did we try to condense the questions, yet we're going on 2.5 hours?
We just had a lot. Yeah,
I know, but I'm saying
yeah. We'll have to reassess a little bit, but yeah.
These are good. I'm just saying. Treese and her weekend highlights. Number 1, I need Jared Goff to carry my fantasy team. She said that out loud, and I said, you have to send that in because your fantasy team's fucked. 2, exact quote while enjoying an outdoor Sky Mint Saturday night. Pretty sure we just witnessed our neighbor burning a body and mattress.
Say what?
Yeah. We were having a fire outside and watching the late games outside, and our neighbor, all of a sudden, we look over, and there's like, they have a fence, and it's like a 10-foot fence, and there's a flame above that, and I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, is their house on fire? Like, what's the protocol? Do we call the cops? So we went over there to half-ass, look it over and trying to see what's going on. They were burning a mattress. Like, they had a fire pit, but they were burning, and no one was out back.
So were they burning it to get rid of the mattress, or to use it as warmth, or just to hang out with a bonfire?
I mean, they have an indoor.
Oh yeah,
they actually have a house. We don't live in a trailer park. I mean, they have a dwelling, if you will. But I don't know. I think that they didn't want to have to pay to get it taken away or something, like to throw it away. I don't know. We didn't talk. No one. That was the craziest part. They set it on fire and then walked back inside.
But you think there might have been a body there?
No, that was Treese's high ass, because we watched too much fucking Dateline. I was like, will you shut up? And then I started buying into it because I was stoned, and it just was like a whole. But we were like, I was like, do we call the police? And we were going back and forth. And I'm like, well, you called 911. Like, what? I'm not going to do it. And then I called the local, like the Ovid Police Department, and I didn't hear it from anyone. But anyway, it didn't burn their house down.
Another story definitely worth telling, presented by our friends at Midtown Brewing Company. That's 402 South Washington Avenue. Outstanding menu and beer selection. Great place for any sort of evening or lunch or with a colleague or anything. Go to midtownbrewing.net to check out their menu and drink selections. And on the weekend, an outstanding brunch place.
Michael Garnett next. Number one, that game was worse than last year at Ohio State because you don't expect mini fucking soda to murder you. Our first team offense couldn't score in a whorehouse, and the defense was as ineffective as the defective condom. This team looks broken, and it looked like they didn't want to be on the field Saturday. The ceiling is 5-7. 2, this game showed that our defensive issues are both scheme and personnel. Our D-line has no depth, but our secondary has dudes, yet keeps getting torched and consistently looks inept. Tuck has 9.5 million reasons to make staff on defense, and hopefully will do so soon. 3, there isn't enough Skyman in the world to get us through this football season. Insert live read for Hopcat or Groovy Donuts here. And bonus, I'm dead inside.
Yeah. Although,
likewise, the show's going on 3 hours.
Yeah. Skyman and Hopcat is a nice deal. So is it Skyman and Groovy Donuts.
Robert next. Number 1, MSU's problems on defense are depth and scheme. 2, Ohio State versus Minnesota in the Big Ten Championship. Book it. 3, if Charlotte, who's 5-0, and versus Portland, who's 4-1, isn't the LSJ game of the week next week, we riot.
Thanks, Robert. I appreciate
Go down to the LSJ offices.
Yeah, no, I'm going to let Brian know that. I think that's decided by readers, too, so I'll start clicking tomorrow and try and get that. I actually would like to see Ohio State, Minnesota, because while I don't think Minnesota would beat Ohio State, I don't think, like there have been years where you're like, that's not going to go well for the team from the West. I think Minnesota could hang in there for a little bit, and I would like to see the matchup at least to see how far away they are.
Mr. Neurotic Pants with the malaise of Spartan Nation. Dour hot takes. Number 1, poop jokes aren't clever, but Spartan Nation really is soaked in hot baby shit. Bottom half Big Ten. 2, it's fine to leave extremely early if a clear, recognizable horseshit pattern emerges, and one did. It shouldn't ruin a day. And 3, it shouldn't ruin a day, but it does. It was overcast, unenergetic, but at least I got drunk with nice people at the tailgate.
That's what it's all about. You had the experience. That's the sales pitch.
Did you know the people at the tailgate, or you just walked up?
Just got drunk with
I'm Mr. Neurotic Pants on the Couch of the Rube podcast.
Also a good way to meet friends.
Yeah.
It's the experience, absolutely.
D-Lou next. Number 1, this team is shockingly bad. The only thing that makes it palpable, is I'm in Cancun all week.
Nice.
Thank you, Jeebus. 2, need to find some hippie lettuce down here, Rube, to make the trip stupendous. 3, didn't think I missed Narduzzi and Coach D this much, as we are ass. And bonus take, appreciate you two.
Appreciate you, D-Lou. I hope you enjoy Cancun. That sounds like a great way to...
Here's how you do it, D-Lou. You go into the pharmacies. I think the Cancun would have pharmacies there, and they have the pipes that they call tobacco pipes or whatever. You just take one up to the cashier and you go, do you have what goes in this? And then you'll meet a guy out back and pay $80 for some decent weed. That's pretty, Don't do it at the resort. Like, you got to be chill. There was some people that got talking to at our resort. So
the advice you get on this show.
Well, you asked, I mean, it's ridiculous. It should be in Cancun. Are you kidding me? Why isn't weed legal in Mexico?
Yeah.
It's fucking Chow Yang Sr. The way this MSU season is going, you're going to need everyone to submit 5 takes instead of 1, or you won't have a show last over 5 minutes.
Hey, Chow, we've been doing this a while. People stay with us. We got through a pandemic with takes, but I appreciate you.
Hey, Chow. Blake Riley next. Hopcat better start brainstorming a new burger name.
The Noah Kim, Noah Kim crack fries.
Yeah.
Nah,
the Katenhauser chicken tenders.
Look, this is one of the interesting dynamics of NIL, right? Is that somebody can get replaced or somebody gets hurt or whatever. You don't become a star, and you've got to deal with somebody. And in this case, it's just a burger, so it's not like a huge thing. But if you've got a giant contract, or there's that's an interesting deal.
Burger's still good though.
Absolutely.
Nick Palmer next. Number 1, love how Dan Campbell coaches like he's playing Madden, going for it 6 times on 4th down. 2, MSU is wasting the talent of a good group at receiver. And 3, I love the pod, but if I hear a Girls 5 Eva song ever again, the people will boycott.
That's fair enough. I
Thank you, Nick.
Jason may just walk out of the...
Dude, when Graham sent that to me, and I previewed it before the show, and I go, I want other people to hear this.
Yeah.
To see what I go through.
It's fair.
You have to play it. It's great. Dark Mantonio next. Number 1, actually glad Michigan got tested and passed with a win. It's still early enough in the season for them to fix things that need to be fixed and not have the season go astray. 2, have fun with your 4-0 start, Florida State. That schedule's about to get rough. Who the hell made Kent State's non-conference schedule? That's a tough way to make $4 million. If Auburn was going to fire Harsin, if they lost, they might as well still do it. Missouri lost that. Auburn did nothing to win it. And 3, Fleck and them boys rode the boat all day through the deep water of that D-line and secondary.
Yeah, there was a missed opportunity with the row the boat and the deep water and all that stuff. Like if Fleck had come out and been like, we heard there was deep water, we came here, we just rode through it. Like that would have worked. We didn't get that.
What a bummer.
Yeah.
Mr. Benjen, number 1, basketball is back. 2, classic situation where you knew how it would go early, shut it off at 14-0. If MSU was going to have any juice, they've had it early in the season. Oh, fuck me. Season's lost, whatever, sorry. 3, how to watch the rest of the games and save your sanity. Expect to get crushed. Watch the first 3 series of the game. Have a fun fall activity, not chores, and ready to pivot to.
Yeah, I mean, that's a couple things. One, if you see it at 14-0, by the way, and you're not going to watch it, and you know how it's going to go, and you feel that good, that's when you go in and make some money on the other team. Just that would be the play right there. That would be
or just turn on some other games and
or just watch something else. But yeah, no, having something else to do. Yeah, Firekeeper's iCasino app and boop.
Yeah. Matt C, number 1.
I don't know what that was.
Tucker equals Brady Hoke, all gimmicks that lose their luster after 1 year. 2, Tucker is going to cost Ishbia a lot of money when he's fired next year. And 3, Tuck came prematurely. Bonus take. Hazleton is swamp ass.
Ishbia's got the money, but I also don't think that's where this is headed. Because, the other thing that's happened is you've got an AD who made this hire, who I think thinks it's a really good hire still. And I just look, the Tucker thing, it's just too early to this is obviously a disappointing stretch. This is an unacceptable stretch. They shouldn't look like this, and there should be remedies, and he's paid a lot of money to fix it, and he needs to fix it, and he needs to make them look more competitive and find ways to get the most out of the roster. All that's fair. The idea that, that after 2 really ass games, it says he's going to be fired after next year. But these are hot takes, Matt, and so we appreciate you.
Loose cornhole next. Number 1, if things keep going south and we're stuck because of Tucker's contract, this could hurt the program for a decade or more. 2, anyone labeled a guru is a fraud. This defensive line sucks. And 3, keep chopping D's nuts.
People are sick of the sayings.
Now there's a shirt.
That is a good shirt.
Yeah. On that.
So we said Jason Nick, podcast guru.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Yep. Tyrone Couch, number 1. Peyton Thorne is the better QB on this team with this line. Noah Kim would be more successful. His fuck it, let me sling it mentality is what this team needs if they want to upset some teams. Thorne at QB, State wins 5 to 6 games. With Kim slinging it, it wins 7 or 8. 2, the team started losing when Tucker quit giving the go green at the end of interviews. He does not show he is all in the past several weeks. 3, PJ Fleck is the secret half-brother of James Franklin, car salesman that wears glasses to post-game interviews when it's a bit sunny. Censored language. He's a fur burger. Also, Hopcat could sell fur burgers to increase sales until people realized it was just a Peyton Thorne burger.
Okay. Yeah, I don't.
Can I get a fur burger with cracked fries, please? Is that any of that offensive?
There is something to the idea that somebody can be better at something, but for a particular team, Noah Kim would be more successful. Gamer, gunslinger mentality. Yeah, but I think Thorne has a little of that in him too. I don't know if there's enough of a difference. But again, Kim's been on the field. We've seen good things. We'll see where Peyton Thorne goes the next couple weeks.
Hans Jurget, number 1, this season will be the greatest comeback since the 1-2 1987 Spartans wound up winning the Big Ten. 2, beating Go Blow with such a shitty team will taste like sweet nectar from the gods. And 3, Tuck coming to Indy and then Pasadena. Bonus hot take. I think I might have brain damage.
Yeah, no, they're not going to Indy or Pasadena this year. In 87, if you recall, it was like they beat USC in the opener and then lost to like Miami and Notre Dame. I just Googled 1987 instead of like MSU
no
football
shit.
schedule.
I mean, your memory's pretty good,
but
at 8 years old.
No, it's. I'm pretty sure it was that. Let's see. It was. Yeah. So they beat USC, who they wound up beating in the Rose Bowl too. Then they lose pretty badly, 31-8 to Notre Dame, and then lose. And that was on the road. And then lose at home to Florida State and Deion Sanders, 31-3. So they took a little pounding. So there's some.
Is this a bit like we do a 2.5 hour show and then you just start reading down 1987's fucking schedule?
Pretty much.
I'd like to get out of here.
Podcast guru.
Jake Hawkins, putting your Twitter bio. Number 1, I'm with you that I'm worried this season could turn out like 2016. Now I got to hope and pray it doesn't. Even the 2009 team went 6-6 and got bowl eligible with turmoil from a dorm fight. Come on, guys. Come on, Tuck. Get it together. 2, not that I want to bring back bad memories, but there was some flashbacks and glimpses of both Bobby Williams and John L. Smith years. Lack of urgency, discipline, and heart. And 3, Middle Tennessee beats Miami. Texas Tech beats Texas. We all love chaos in college football till it happens to your favorite team. MSU fans are experiencing this.
Yeah, it is true that you don't pay a lot of attention when it's happening elsewhere. But this was not just chaos. This was a non-competitiveness. And I do think the flashbacks are fair. Like, we all use previous coaches and previous bad times and whatever to compare things to. But this was a game that reminded you of eras that were awful. And I don't think this is an awful era. I think this is still in the upswing of the Mel Tucker era. But it was one of those things that makes you go, wait a sec, what? And that's all. Those are all fair emotions.
Upper Deck Jerk Guy. Number 1, Tucker is overpaid. 2, Kenneth Walker should have won the Heisman last year. And 3, capitalization is overrated.
So I don't like all lower cases on the tweet, so I get annoyed by that, and I tweeted it out last week.
We all saw that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's Twitter guru, Graham Couch.
Yeah.
Definitely. We appreciate all of you and all of your hot takes. We appreciate Hopcat and their support. And Doug Uper will get with the Hopcat hot take of the day. We'll get a $20 gift card to Hopcat. We appreciate Skyman. And look, football season's got a ways to go. Lions, Michigan State, everybody. I would recommend Skymint. Go to skymint.com for location information and daily deals. And we'll be back Tuesday night, and we'll figure out something fun to talk about. Good show, man.
Yeah, man.
Couch in the Rube.